Well, hello everybody. Darren Saul here from Suspended Animation here in Sydney, Australia. First of all, I'd like to extend a huge thank you to the conference organisers for allowing me to present at this amazing event. And I'm really looking forward to sharing my knowledge and expertise with you. So today I'm going to be chatting about the 10 reasons why podcasting is an absolute must in 2021. Just a little bit about me, my backstory. I originally am a photographer for many, many years. And a number of years ago, I discovered how important social media and podcasting is for my marketing. And I dived heavily into both of those things, in particular podcasting. And I was absolutely amazed with the results. So to this day, I'm a very avid podcaster. I put out podcasts a couple of times a week. I've done over 130 shows, and the results that podcasting has brought me from a marketing, brand awareness, and business point of view has been astounding. So let's jump in. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, 10 reasons why you must have your own podcast in 2021. Reason number 1, as I always say, your podcast actually forms one pillar in your wider social media marketing strategy. And my podcast content does better a lot of the times than all of my other content. And the reason is, I think it's because it's fresh, it's a new guest every time, it's a new perspective, and it's nice for my audience to see not just me and hear what I have to say, but also see and hear what someone else has to say as well. So it always keeps it fresh. And so that's why I really believe that a podcast allows you to deliver fresh content to your audience regularly, which is so important these days on social media. Point number 2, podcasting allows you to build your brand and generate business results without actually hard selling or push selling anything. And this is huge. I mean, these days, everybody's promoting so heavily on social media. Podcasting is a very subtle, indirect way to build brand, build relationships, and slowly leverage those relationships into business results without actually putting on the hard sell. When you have a podcast, for example, with a guest, you are building relationships with that guest before the show, during the show, after the show, and building relationships with your audience and their audience, etc., etc. And it's a very, very organic, relaxed process that builds trust, credibility, and likability, and that's what gives you business results. So it's not about hard selling anymore. It's about soft selling and building relationships and building trust, and a podcast allows you to do that like no other. Number 3, it allows you to leverage your guest audience and thus build your network. And I touched on that in the point before. Every single time you have another guest, you're actually, when you promote that podcast, you are promoting it and sharing it and tagging another person. And therefore, you actually can tap into another person's whole network and they tap into yours. Not to mention the word of mouth and the other sharing of content and collaboration that comes with it. So leveraging your guest audience these days is huge. That's what social media is all about. And podcasting content allows you to really leverage that phenomenon and that mechanism to the highest level. Number 4, you can collaborate and build relationships with other thought leaders and influencers. And this is really powerful. I mean, when you're podcasting, you start to become part of a closed circle of closed group of podcasters. You get to star on each other's shows, you get to leverage each other's audiences, you get to share content, you get to do co-promotion shows, you get to do all sorts of things. You get invited to, other people's networks and other people's events, and it really is a very powerful way to build relationships and build brand through that collaboration. Collaboration these days is so important. Being that there's so much more competition out there, and how do we break through? We have to leverage off other influencers and other star performers in your field, and that allows you to collaborate and build those relationships to help you build your brand. So I think it's a really important point, and it's really allowed me to collaborate with some amazing people, and it's just a lot of fun when you do that. Number 5, as further on slightly to that last point, podcast allows you to position yourself as a thought leader and an authority in your field. Now, this is really powerful. When you position yourself as a thought leader in your field, what happens? People think of you as the star, as the expert. Then all of a sudden, you get invited to speak at conferences, to speak at keynotes, to do workshops, to do training sessions, to collaborate. And these days, more and more of this is happening online. So it's really important to position yourself as a thought leader, an authority in your area, using online techniques and online strategies such as social media and a podcast. And so my podcast has brought me amazing results from a point of being asked to do different keynote speeches, collaborate with other podcasters, etc., etc. So it really helps you position yourself as a thought leader, as an expert in your field, which leads to business. Number 6, when you have a podcast, you can extract many, many forms of content from just that one piece. Social media marketing these days is about content, and we are all content creators. We're all digital content creators, and that's the way it's going to be for quite some time. We have to get comfortable with written content, audio content, video content, graphic content, and photo content. And this can all come from one single source, i.e. your podcast. When you have a podcast, you can send it to Rev. You can get a transcript of what you just said. Turn that into a blog post, a written blog post. You have the audio version of your podcast. You also have the video version of your podcast. You can then put graphics to that podcast or take a screenshot. You can take a photo and promote that podcast. So there's so much you can do from a content leveraging point of view from just one show. It's phenomenal. And I tend to cut up my videos into little bits and use those in my marketing. So there's so many forms of content you can get from your podcast. And I think it's just a never-ending, evergreen source of content that is so much fun to create, and it doesn't feel like hard work. Number 7, it allows you to be creative. Now, as Chase Jarvis from Creative Live always says, I'm a huge fan, and he has his own podcast about this. He says, creativity is a muscle, and it has to be developed every day. And I've definitely noticed that in my journey as a podcaster and as a social media digital marketer or content creator, I've definitely noticed that the more I dive into podcasting and content creation, the more creative I get. The more creative I get in terms of how I execute that podcast, how I promote that podcast, how I prepare that podcast. And then that creativity spills into everything else you do. So creativity, again, is something that has to be developed, has to be worked on, and it's something that takes its own form and takes its own energy when you really dive in and allow yourself to be creative. And again, it's just so much fun, and it's amazing what creativity will do when it spills into other parts of your life, not only your workplace. Number 8, when you have a podcast, it allows you to sharpen your communication, interpersonal, and interview skills. Now, this is huge. These days, we're all collaborating, we're all interacting with each other. You know, your communication skills and your interpersonal skills are so important. And when you interview people on your podcast, for example, and even if you don't interview people, you still have an enormous opportunity to sharpen your communication, sharpen your interpersonal skills, and sharpen the way you come across, the way you articulate your ideas and express yourself, which again will spill into many, many other forms of your life. So another really great opportunity to sharpen your communication, interpersonal, and interview skills when you have your own podcast. Number 9, it allows you to upskill and get on top of the latest technology. As we all know, it's 2021. Digital is here to stay, and we're all, as I mentioned, digital content creators, which means we all have to get comfortable with all the software, all the websites, all the hardware that entails. And when you have a podcast, you start to really learn about that. You learn about lighting, just in a simple manner. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You learn about video. You learn about photo. You learn about sound. And again, a lot of this stuff doesn't have to be expensive when you first start. You know, you can start off with a very, very simple webcam, a couple of ring lights, a very, very basic microphone like this one, and start creating your podcast using something like Zoom, and you have an audio version and a video version, and off you go. So it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't have to take a lot of time initially in the preparation and research phase. And as you get better, as your journey progresses, and as you develop as a podcaster, you start to develop your skills from a technology point as well. But again, working with all this technology really allows you to get up to the latest technology, update your skills, and be very comfortable as a content creator in any form, which is only going to help you in your journey as a marketer, and we're all marketers these days, and as a business person from 2021 onwards. Number 10, you have so much fun. I must admit, like, I've been podcasting for a couple of years, and I really enjoy my bi-weekly podcasts. I really get to interact with people. I build some incredible relationships with every single guest that I have on my show. I really appreciate all the feedback and the loyalty I get from my audience, and it's just so much fun. I get to feed my enthusiasm, feed my hunger as a podcaster by listening to other podcasts and learning how they do it. I get to really enjoy sharing my ideas and the experience that I've learned over the years, and it really is a lot of fun as a podcaster. So I would highly recommend it. And my last point, I always like to give one extra, is my bonus tip. You learn so much from your guests. I've done 135 odd episodes, and it's like doing a mini degree every time I do a podcast episode for half an hour or 45 minutes or even an hour. I've learned so much from that guest, and I can ask them those questions that I've always wanted to know, and I don't have to research it. My expert, who's been living and breathing this niche for the last God knows how many years, is right in front of me, and I can ask them what I need to know and really draw on their experience. So you learn so much from your guests. It's phenomenal, and it's made me a much more well-rounded business person, tackling loads of different topics on my podcast over the last couple of years. So there you have it, guys. My top 10 plus one bonus tip for why podcasting is an absolute must in 2021. And just the last point, a lot of people say, podcasting, it's so saturated. Everybody's got their own podcast. Why bother starting? And I really think that that's not an excuse. These days, a lot of people start their own podcasts, but they never finish them. A lot of people never get past episode 20. And, if you can do that and really stick in it for the long haul and develop your podcast journey and your skills along the way, your podcast can be an incredible marketing tool for you and a point of expression for you as well. So start your podcast. It's never too late. Everybody's authentic. Everybody's got their own point of view, and everybody's got something to share about a particular topic, even if it's been covered 100 times before. So if anybody wants to know a little bit more, feel free to contact me, Darren Saul from Suspended Animation here in Sydney, Australia, suspendedanimation.com.au. Again, I'd love to thank the organisers of the conference for allowing me to present about this fantastic topic, which I'm very passionate about. Now it's time to hand over to you guys for some questions. If you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with me, either via the LinkedIn group that's been provided by the event, or feel free to jump on LinkedIn or send me an email, however you like to connect. I would be only too happy to answer all your questions. So thanks, everybody. Hope you had a great day. Hope you have a fantastic conference. And hopefully you start your podcast in 2021. Bye for now.
Olá, prazer! Meu nome é Rafael Terra, eu sou consultor, palestrante, professor nas áreas de marketing digital e redes sociais aqui no Brasil. Estou muito feliz de dividir com vocês 12 das maiores tendências digitais que estão impactando a forma de nós fazermos marketing, de nós vendermos a partir da web, certo? Também nesta palestra eu vou falar muito sobre o Instagram, porque hoje as oportunidades, o dinheiro, elas vão para onde estão a atenção das pessoas. E se tem uma rede social que hoje está à atenção das pessoas, esta rede social é o Instagram. É um jogo de atenção e hoje a rede social onde as pessoas passam mais tempo é o nosso amigo Instagram. Inclusive, eu acabo de lançar aqui no Brasil um livro de Instagram Marketing, né, que está disponível na Amazon, inclusive. E para a gente continuar esse relacionamento que começamos aqui, me siga no Instagram também, que vou ter um prazer aí de conhecer quem é que está assistindo aqui essa palestra, certo? Vamos lá então. Primeira grande tendência, o senso de comunidade. Com a pandemia, com o afastamento de nós, dos nossos amigos, da nossa família, cresceu muito o número de pessoas entrando em grupos, principalmente grupos do Facebook e grupos de WhatsApp. É aquela velha história, nós gostamos de estar com pessoas na mesma vibe, né? E os grupos do Facebook, principalmente, têm esse poder de colocar pessoas com interesses em comum numa mesma plataforma, né? Mas qual a dica que eu dou para as marcas? Elas não criarem grupos simplesmente com o nome delas, mas sim criarem grupos em cima dos comportamentos dos seus clientes, né? Vou te dar um exemplo. Digamos que você tenha um e-commerce de roupas de bebê. Não cria um grupo com o nome da tua marca, né? Cria um grupo mamães de primeira viagem, certo? Estou falando isso porque nós temos esse case aqui no Brasil e funcionou muito, certo? Então, de novo, não é sobre marcas, é sobre comportamentos. Quando você cria um grupo com um comportamento afim dos teus consumidores, eles se engajam, certo? Então, criar grupos, dar esse senso de comunidade é uma grande tendência e vai crescer cada vez mais, certo? Segunda tendência, ações recorrentes com influenciadores digitais. Uma pesquisa da Hype Auditor mostrou que nesse ano, até o final do ano, vai crescer 15% o investimento de marcas em influenciadores digitais. Mas não qualquer influenciadores digitais, né? Influenciadores digitais autênticos, ou seja, aqueles influenciadores que realmente têm posicionamentos, né? Agora, as marcas devem entender que hoje o jogo é sobre ações recorrentes. Reputação é repetição. Reputação é repetição. Eu sou aquilo que eu repito. Então você não vai conseguir construir marcas fazendo ações pontuais com influenciadores. Você tem que ver ações com influenciadores a longo prazo. E daí, a dica que eu dou aqui para as marcas é não escolher influenciadores simplesmente por a sua fama, por o seu número de seguidores. Escolha influenciadores digitais que realmente tem uma ligação de posicionamento com aquele público que você quer atingir, certo? Terceira dica, o Reels no Instagram. Como a gente falou no início, o Instagram hoje é onde está a atenção das pessoas, né? Só que quando o Instagram, assim como qualquer outra plataforma, lança uma novidade, essa plataforma, ela quer também o que? Divulgação para essa nova plataforma e dar mais visibilidade para aquelas pessoas que estão usando aquela plataforma, né? Então, por isso que o Reels, gente, é uma grande oportunidade para pessoas e marcas crescerem rápido, certo? Porque tem poucas pessoas utilizando o Reels. Agora, a dica que eu dou para pessoas e marcas utilizarem o Reels e realmente criarem um impacto grande é sempre ter algo, né, diferente, algo que saia do comum. O Reels não é simplesmente para você ir lá e falar num vídeo. Você tem que ter um elemento surpresa. É esse elemento surpresa que fará com que as pessoas prestem atenção no teu Reels, tá? Então é muito importante você ter esse elemento surpresa, você postar com frequência e principalmente postar esse Reels também no feed do Instagram e no horário que o teu público está conectado. Isso vai te dar uma visibilidade muito, muito grande, né?
Encontrei isso na internet.
Outra questão, desculpem gente, outra questão super importante, né? A tendência número 4 é a explosão das lives em e-commerce, né? Das lives em e-commerce. Tem uma frase que eu gosto muito que diz o seguinte: engaje gente engajada. Você sempre vai vender mais para aquelas pessoas que estão engajadas com você, com aquelas pessoas que estão engajadas com você. Então, ao invés de simplesmente você querer vender, crie antes um movimento de vendas, né? E os webinários, eles são ótimos para isso. Eu, inclusive, recomendo você fazer as suas lives no YouTube e não no Instagram, porque no YouTube, né, as pessoas podem ver a tua live, inclusive na TV. E quando alguém coloca uma marca na TV, isso é algo muito grandioso, né? Já no Instagram, as lives no Instagram, como cresceram muito, há muita concorrência e há muita dispersão. Então faça lives, mas faça principalmente no YouTube. E o principal, dica muito importante, sempre que for criar uma live, criar um webinário, crie uma página de inscrição onde o teu usuário vai deixar o e-mail, tá? Porque esse e-mail é um lead para você criar esse diálogo a longo prazo com este consumidor. Então as lives continuarão crescendo, mas você tem que ter um bom motivo, né, para que o teu consumidor realmente preste atenção na sua marca, certo? Tendência número 5 e muito, muito importante. Conteúdo longo em carrossel, né, com storytelling no Instagram. Está provado que o algoritmo do Instagram ele leva mais em consideração para dar mais visualizações a uma marca conteúdos que gerem salvamento, né? Quando a gente salva um post. E está provado também que as pessoas salvam mais conteúdos longos, ou seja, conteúdos com vários cards. Então a dica que eu te dou aqui, ó, é você transformar o teu post em conteúdo com storytelling com vários cards. Ao invés de você colocar a informação num card só, traga essa informação em storytelling, tá? Vários cards. Isso vai gerar mais salvamento e também mais do que retenção. As pessoas vão ficar mais tempo no teu post e com isso vai acontecer o quê? Vai acontecer de o teu post ganhar mais views. E ganhando mais views, você impacta mais pessoas e aumenta as tuas chances de vender a algo, né? Tendência número 6, o poder da voz, né? O poder da voz, ascensão da voz. Aqui no Brasil tem crescido muito a linguagem do podcast, né? Porque uma das coisas muito bacanas do podcast é que ele é uma das únicas mídias que consegue chegar nas pessoas durante o trabalho. A maioria das pessoas trabalham ou escutando algo, né, ou escutando música. Ou seja, né, a linguagem da voz, a linguagem do podcast é uma das únicas linguagens que impacta as pessoas, impacta o consumidor durante o trabalho. Isso é algo grandioso, né? Então aposte em voz. Aqui no Brasil tem uma tendência muito grande, inclusive nos Estados Unidos também, que é os blogs. Os blogs tem o texto do blog, o texto do site, mas também tem a opção da pessoa escutar aquele texto, opção em áudio. Então isso é uma tendência muito grande, né? De você, além de você entregar uma mídia em texto, você entrega aquela mídia também em áudio, porque isso facilita o consumo da marca, né? E que justamente essa tendência tem muito a ver com esta próxima tendência, que é a tendência número 7. Tendência número 7 é a volta das newsletters, a volta do e-mail marketing, né? Durante muitos anos, as pessoas elas querem matar o e-mail marketing, matar as newsletters. Só que hoje, com tanta informação em tantos lugares, o e-mail é hoje o tipo de comunicação mais assertiva no quesito intimidade. É o tipo de comunicação mais íntima com o consumidor. Então você chegar até a caixa de entrada de e-mails do seu consumidor é algo precioso, né? Então, se você não tem, se a sua marca não tem newsletter, pense nisso, tá? Ter uma newsletter por semana deveria ser uma quase obrigação para todas as marcas, né? E não ter essa preocupação de ser chato, né? Porque quando você dá um conteúdo realmente relevante para aquele consumidor não vai achar chato. E por isso que é muito importante o nome do e-mail marketing, o nome da newsletter, certo? Porque é pelo nome da newsletter que o teu consumidor vai abrir ou não o teu e-mail. Então nada de colocar simplesmente newsletter, número isso, número aquilo. Não, coloca um título impactante, que é isso que fará a newsletter ter mais abertura, né? Outra tendência muito interessante, tendência número 8, é os avatares de marca e a humanização de marca. Pessoas acreditam mais em pessoas do que em logos. Então, a tendência muito grande, né? As marcas aqui no Brasil, em muitos países, começarem a se humanizar a partir dos avatares. Aqui no Brasil nós temos um case muito interessante de uma varejista chamada Magazine Luiza, que tem o seu avatar Lu. A Lu, ela é praticamente uma pessoa que chora, que sorri, que tem emoções, mas que principalmente é o elo humano na web com os consumidores e com a marca. Então pense nisso, né? Humanização. Lembrando que nós humanizamos uma marca quando falamos das pessoas que fazem a marca, das pessoas que consomem a marca e também, obviamente, da arquitetura de marca, tá? Então humanize a sua marca, que isso é muito importante, certo? Tendência número 9, muito importante, é o vídeo SEO no Google. Vídeo SEO no Google, tá? Vídeo SEO no Google. O que é vídeo SEO no Google? Gente, 80% da nossa percepção é imagética. Então, quando nós buscamos algo no Google e esse resultado da busca ela vem em vídeo, nosso cérebro sempre vai prestar mais atenção. E a boa notícia, né? Talvez a maioria das pessoas sabe, mas enfim, o YouTube é do Google. Então você começar a trazer dentro dos seus sites, dentro das suas páginas, conteúdo em vídeo dentro do teu blog, do site, remetendo aquelas palavras-chave da tua página, vai fazer as tuas páginas crescerem muito no Google. Então, resumindo, trabalhar conteúdo multimídia, imagem, texto e mais vídeo, vai fazer com que as tuas páginas, o teu blog, cresça muito no Google. Sem contar que os vídeos no YouTube têm esse poder de humanizar o teu produto, o teu serviço. Tem até uma frase que eu gosto muito que diz o seguinte, que antigamente quem não tivesse um site não existiria. Hoje é quem não tem vídeo não existe, porque a linguagem do vídeo é a linguagem suprema da web, né? Tendência número 10, ascensão dos infoprodutores. Aqui no Brasil é muito forte o crescimento, né, de pessoas, de profissionais virarem infoprodutores, ou seja, venderem o seu conhecimento na web, né? Será que você não tem algo para ensinar e pode cobrar por isso? Então a gente está vivendo no mundo uma ascensão do ensino virando entretenimento, principalmente na pandemia. Isso é algo muito positivo, né? O consumo, a compra de cursos online, educação online, ela está muito grande e só vai continuar crescendo. Então é uma grande oportunidade para infoprodutores e até para marcas terem aí um pedaço da sua marca focada em venda de conhecimento, infoprodutos, certo? Tendência número 11 e uma das mais importantes, né? Que é o quê? Um pensamento global de marca. De novo, a pandemia, né? A pandemia nos fez, de uma forma muito agressiva, ver que nós temos sim que pensar no outro, que nós temos que sim, né? Que sim ver o todo. Porque uma coisa lá na China afetou o Brasil, o mundo inteiro, né? Enfim, e vai continuar afetando, né? A gente está vendo aqui alguns países, enfim, que não controlaram ainda a pandemia, né? Inclusive, infelizmente, o Brasil, né? Então, o que é isso? As marcas, elas não podem ter mais só um pensamento local, elas têm que ter esse pensamento global. Então, o teu conteúdo nas redes sociais, o teu conteúdo na web, ele obviamente tem que ter, olhar para o teu entorno, mas inserir a tua marca naquilo que está acontecendo no mundo. É o que a gente fala, aproximar a tua marca do contexto do mundo. Marcas que conseguem isso, elas vivem mais e elas têm mais relevância na cabeça do consumidor. E para finalizar, a última tendência, tendência número 12, tendência content shock, né? Choque de conteúdo e ascensão do slow content. O que é essa tendência do content shock? É que hoje existe mais conteúdo do que pessoas para ler esse conteúdo na web. Ao mesmo tempo, muitas pessoas estão saturadas de tanta informação. Então está ganhando força um tipo de conteúdo que é o slow content, ou seja, eu dou menos conteúdo para a minha audiência, mas aquele conteúdo que eu der para a minha audiência, ele vai ser longo, ele vai ser profundo, né? Então entram aqui os vídeos longos, conteúdo em carrossel, conteúdo mais denso, né? Isso é slow content, mais profundidade. Muito obrigado, espero que eu tenha ajudado aí o seu negócio, a sua marca com essas tendências. Me segue no Instagram, @terra do Rafael, e vai ser um prazer aí continuar esse relacionamento com vocês. Um abração aqui do Brasil.
Hello, my name is Dodds, and today we're going to be looking at how AR is not the future, but in fact it is already here. 2 years ago, I was a poor, struggling artist when I was lying in bed one day and I saw something which I had never seen before, and it quite frankly changed my life. It was an Instagram post, and it was the first time that I had seen AR combined with art, and as a self-confessed creative nerd, I was instantly hooked. I had no idea the world that I was about to fall into, but thank God that I did, because 2 years later, to the present day, I've quit my full-time corporate job and now work with some of the biggest brands in the world doing something that I love. And today, over the next sort of 10-15 minutes, I'm going to be explaining what I've learned over that journey and how I think it affects the future of digital marketing. Before we get into the future though, let's answer a really big question. Why is augmented reality such a big deal? And for anybody who doesn't know, augmented reality is the ability to apply a digital layer over our physical environment around us in real time. A great example here is somebody like myself who constantly forgets to take their keys with them. The glasses that this user is wearing can identify and locate a user's glasses. So when they're leaving the house, they can get a reminder to pick those up, and they can even be located for them. And this opens up a whole new world for brands to explore this new tech and try to understand how to best utilize it. And more importantly, how can they use it to convert consumers? And this led to a brilliant research piece done by a leading UK research facility, NeuroInsight, and they looked at the effects AR have on marketing by measuring brain activity within a group of volunteers using non-AR and AR content. One example of the tasks they had to do was using this IKEA app, which plenty of you will have seen before, that allows the user to try an object in their room before purchasing. And these were the results. The brighter colors on the right here indicate really high levels of brain activity in lots of different areas of the brain, and that's important because that means that people found it more interesting, surprising, and engaging. But what I thought was really interesting, one of the main things they found from the study was that AR made consumers feel closer to the product and they could relate to it on a more individual level, and that's because they're sharing this personal one-on-one experience with the product or the brand. And further to that research, they also discovered that 2 weeks after those tests were done, the participants could only remember 10% of what they'd read. They could remember 20% of what they'd heard that day, but they could actually remember 70% of what they'd learned engaging with AR. And the reason for that is the motion intensity and visual attention, which basically means their level of concentration and engagement, was nearly double when using AR. And that stands to reason if you think that you're engaging with a piece of AR content, a lot more of your senses or concentration is needed than just simply looking at a picture or listening to an advert of sorts. So if you only remember 10 to 20% of what you're seeing and hearing today, make sure that it's this slide. AR delivers information in a more effective way, which can influence purchasing decisions going forward. So it's not only were they remembering 70%, but the brain was actually storing it in a slightly different way because it was filed under the useful section of the brain's subconscious, and that actually impacted future purchasing decisions or future behavior, which leads to future purchasing decisions. And with 150 million new paying customers signing up to online shopping for the first time in their lives last year due to COVID, there's an increase on demand for brands to figure out a new way to engage and, as I mentioned before, convert consumers. With all those new customers, there's a new level of competition, and because of that, experts have predicted that the mainstream adoption of augmented reality has been fast forwarded by 4 years, and that is what I mean when I say that it is no longer the future, it is very much here to stay. So what do we know so far? We know that there's a new wave of customers coming online for the first time in their lives. We know that there's a new wave of competition, so the fight for attention has never been tougher online. And we also know that because of COVID, the online conversions have never been more important to a brand's bottom line. And the final thing we know is that AR is a more meaningful way to engage a consumer. So how are brands utilizing AR now, and what are they going to be doing in the future? E-commerce is a great example of how you can take the modern day experience of e-commerce and improve it with AR. If you actually take the modern day experience with e-commerce, it sucks. It's terrible. If you actually think about it for a second, I have to spend my hard-earned money based on a picture of somebody wearing the garment, and that person doesn't look anything like me, they're not the same size as me, and then what often happens is I buy the item, I try it on, it doesn't fit, I'm disappointed, I return it, and returns are a huge issue within the fashion industry right now. As it says here, they're 75% higher than they were 4 years ago, and they cost last year, the fashion industry, in the US alone, that is $550 billion. And according to Shopify's research, AR has helped to proven to reduce returns by 40%. And not only does it actually reduce your return rate, so you save money there, the conversion rate is actually 94%. So it nearly doubles your online conversion whilst nearly halving the amount of returns. And this is an example of a virtual trying on app where you'd have a try on in AR button, and then you would be able to try the item on and also get a size recommendation as well. So the two main problems that I mentioned there, what does it look like on me and will it fit? I've solved those problems using AR, and they're the two biggest concerns when it comes to e-commerce. And you take the normal sales funnel, AR comes in this evaluation stage. You have awareness, which might be like a social post, interest, consideration, and intent is going on the website, browsing, potentially adding something to your favorites or putting something in a basket. But usually people will just keep it there, especially with high ticket items and clothes. People have those concerns, which I mentioned before, and tend to wait up to 2 weeks before actually purchasing. Evaluation stage here can be sped up by using AR because it can solve all of those problems, as I mentioned before. And according to Facebook's research, it will actually increase the consumer loyalty for a brand. If you think, I use the try on app, I get an item of clothing, it arrives in the post, it actually does fit me like they said it would, and I know what I look like already, so I've managed my expectations. It's very easy for me to then purchase again using the app compared to a competitor where I still don't know how it's going to fit. So that's the website, the product page, the e-commerce side of things. The social strategy, just as the way that you think about images and video as absolute given in any social campaign, you'll now start to think about augmented reality for the reasons that I've mentioned before. It's more engaging, the personal one-to-one experience actually leads to higher conversions. You'll be a fool to miss that out in any social strategy. And you might be thinking social filters are sort of selfie beautified images, which in some campaigns that might be the right thing to do, but today, considering the Instagram filters are about 3 years old as of the time of this filming, the ability to build Instagram filters, there's already so much you can do, and it's really only going to get a hell of a lot better. Being in the partner program, Facebook give us access to stuff they're working on over the next 5 years, and I can tell you that it's very exciting. This is a jacket that I created recently, where the filter scans the back of the jacket. It will only work when it sees the back of the jacket, and there's a hidden basketball court with Kobe in, and this is actually an interactive game where you can tap to shoot. So that already goes to show just how much you could build within a Instagram filter. One of the main benefits of using AR or social filters in your campaign is the reach. At the moment, if you're going to do a campaign, you're probably going to get some influencers to post about it. You may put some paid spend behind it. The filters that I've created over the last year, or it's about 10 months, have reached 82 million Instagram users. If you're going to put paid spend behind that, that would cost you $500,000. And I can tell you quite confidently that I haven't been paid close to that figure. So it really goes to show that this is a very cost-effective way of reaching lots of people on social. And not only are you reaching them in a more cost-effective way, but what you're actually reaching them with is considered a better form of marketing. Everybody knows about UGC, user-generated content, word-of-mouth marketing. It's not just me shouting at the top of the hillside about how good my brand is. If you have 500 followers, let's say I post my filter 500 followers, and each one of those 500 followers likes it, uses the filter and posts it to their 500 followers, without spending any money, I've reached 250,000 people. And every single one of those people will have seen somebody else social proofing my brand for me rather than me shouting about how good it is. And that's why UGC is considered to be the holy grail. In terms of retention, the average dwell time on a piece of social AR is 75 seconds, which for anybody in the marketing world is pretty much a lifetime on social media, especially compared to 3-second video views. So that's what you could do today with e-commerce and social media, but let's look towards the last sort of 5 minutes or so, the future of digital marketing. This is why I'm so confident that AR is the way things are going is because every single big tech brand that you could name to me right now is doing something in this space. And the reason they're all scrambling to build the next AR piece of hardware is because everybody else is. So if Snapchat are building these lenses and I no longer have to go on my iPhone or use an iOS device, then Apple are losing out there. So everybody, and the same reason that Facebook and Apple are having these problems at the moment, if they can build the next piece of hardware and they don't have to have their app, on Facebook, on iPhone, for example, then that would be a great benefit to them. So let's look at Apple as the first point of call. They're working on the glasses, and the sort of timeline for their glasses are, I think it's 2022 for a helmet, 2030 for glasses, and 2050 for contact lenses, if my memory serves me right. And the reason I'm excited about what Apple are going to do, we all know that it's going to be brilliant, but you could argue that they've been working towards AR for the past 10 years. 10 years ago, the first iPhone comes out. So now everybody is very, very comfortable with having a piece of a small personal computer in their pocket and carrying it around with them all the time. It would be weird for you to not feel comfortable doing that at this point. So if Apple have their glasses, they can keep a lot of the computing power they can have more computing power in their pocket, and that will keep those glasses really, really light. That will ease the mainstream adoption because people won't want to have these really heavy glasses. You also have AirPods and Apple Watches as well. So now we're all very comfortable with having headphones in 7 hours a day and wearing a small computer on our wrists at all times. We're all very, very comfortable with that. They've also been working with LiDAR sensors in their new iPads and certain new phones, and that's a benefit as well because the glasses will have to have LiDAR sensors over cameras, and there's a whole conversation about the argument between LiDAR and cameras, but we're now comfortable with using LiDAR sensors as well, which a couple of years ago we'd never even heard of really. But if you marry all of those up, so we have the LiDAR sensors with the camera, we have the small computer in our pockets, so we have beautiful graphics, we have haptic feedbacks, vibrations in our wrists, and we now have sound as well in our AR experiences. All of that combined is going to build a beautiful AR experience. Facebook also doing some amazing work here. They too are working on glasses. They've got Project Aria at the moment, which is a research project where a couple of Facebook employees are going to be wearing these glasses, and it's not true AR, but it's understanding use cases for AR, potential privacy, security risks, things like that. A lot of people know about Oculus, the business that they acquired a couple of years ago, but not many people know about Control Labs. Control Labs it essentially has a wristband that can read your mind. This example here, this user is using a bow and arrow, but as she pulls the bow and arrow back, it increases the tension in the wrist. So it gives that idea of tension, which is just a magical experience. And as I said down here, it understands electrical objects at home, and it can even understand hand gestures. It intercepts the motor neurons your brain sends to your hand, and it can interpret those electrical signals. So if I'm typing, anywhere I want to work is now on the keyboard. So they're also working on some amazing stuff. And like I said, not many people really actually are talking about Control Labs, but arguably that's their most exciting area. Snapchat have Spectacle 3s, which are easily the most beautiful looking AR glasses out there at the moment, and they've just, as of a couple of days ago when I recorded this, released Snap Spectacle 4s, which look incredibly promising. If you consider Spectacles 1, 2 and 3 to be that alpha testing section, Spectacles 4 is a whole new, it's beta testing, it's a lot more developed, it's a lot more exciting, so you can now have complete AR effects inside the glasses, and that's what I'm saying, you might not need to have the iPhone now because you can have them all in your glasses. The runtime's only about 30 minutes, but you'd expect the battery to be terrible at this stage. We're talking 10 years now, so to sort of manage everyone's expectations, they're not going to be amazing. What Snapchat are doing, which I commend them for, is they're sort of failing in public. They're just testing, they're getting, the Spectacle 4s is actually not available to purchase, but they're only going out to creators so that they understand that they're not clever enough to do the hardware and the software. They're giving the glasses to the creators and they're saying, here, you figure out what you want to do with it, we'll just build it. And when we get to Spectacles, 7, 8, 9, that's going to be really, really exciting. So at the moment, not great, but something that you could pick up today. These are pretty incredible. Amazon, again, I haven't seen anybody, and when I was doing the research for this talk, any news outlet talking about Amazon's venture into AR. This is a screenshot from a patent that I found in the deep depths of the web. They are creating what looks like a virtual try-on. I know that Amazon are investing heavily in their fashion side, and that's something they want to be a really big player in. This looks like they're making some sort of magic mirror contraption, which, as you can see here, will then be linked to their marketplace so you can purchase items at ease. Very exciting for all the reasons that I mentioned before about e-commerce, about conversion and returns. I know Amazon are also highly concerned about the level of returns, not just in fashion, but in all of their products. And then you have two more, which you potentially might not have heard of, Magic Leap and Nreal. Nreal, a Japanese company doing amazing work, and these are up there with the best, potentially could be the best that you could buy today. A lot of success in Japan, and they're slowly coming over to the US and the UK. This, as you can see, is tethered with a wire to a portable device, but that in the future will, just go to the phone, like I mentioned with Apple. But you can do some really amazing work on that, and I don't think they get the credit that they deserve. Magic Leap's an interesting one. They've sort of tried to fail in public, like Snapchat are doing, but they sort of failed quite badly, you could say. They released the Magic Leap ones, and it was just, people didn't rate them at all, and they've actually pivoted their whole business now to not be consumer facing but to be enterprise first. In terms of technology adoption, enterprise will always come first. There's lots of examples in the past of tech being in enterprise first before mainstream adoption, and that's because you can control a lot of the environments, you can build specific tools for specific problems. Enterprise businesses, they have these budgets to buy these big expensive headsets. Research claims that AR training is 74% more effective than regular training and 95% cheaper because you can do it anywhere in the world. So that's what Magic Leap are working on now, AR training for enterprises, but I think once they've gathered all their information there, they'll come back to consumers and more mainstream brands. So to recap, every single tech company that you can think of, and potentially a few more, are working on AR headsets. This is the way things are going. It's very difficult to argue a case where it's not. For all of the reasons that I mentioned before, you have higher retention, higher conversion, you reach people cheaper and more effectively on social media. Consumers feel like they're having a more personal experience with your brand, and it can actually increase brand loyalty. So overall, I think we could all agree that AR is good. And if you're watching this video and this is the first time you're seeing AR like I did 2 years ago, all I can say is sort of welcome. We're happy to have you.
Hi everyone, my name is Mario Peshev and I'm really thrilled to present this year at the World Digital Weeks, and my topic today is going to cover LinkedIn. Some best practices on LinkedIn, how to be a thought leader there, how to present your ideas in the best possible manner, how to grow a community, essentially broken down into 10 ways that you can incorporate the platform as best as possible for your own thought leadership endeavors or personal branding. So without further ado, we're going to hop onto the presentation and I'm going to jump right in. Let me minimize Zoom here and hit present, and we're good to go. So once again, the main topic today and the main thing we're going to cover are the 10 ways to establish yourself as a thought leader on LinkedIn. So what we need to know here is a bunch of different best practices, but the first thing I want to cover is, of course, why am I discussing this with you? My background is founder and CEO of Devrix and Growth Shuttle and a few other businesses. So I'm in charge of doing a lot of business development and sales and recruitment and everything else on top of the platform, which is why employer branding and thought leadership are so important for me. I've spent the past 14 years on LinkedIn testing out different strategies and different techniques, and I'm keeping track of some of the most successful endeavors that I have kind of achieved and accomplished on top of the platform. I'm going to uncover certain things that most of you, or at least some of you, don't still have access to because they're beta features on top of LinkedIn or so. But I'm really hopeful that at some point in time, LinkedIn is actually going to roll these out across the globe because, again, the platform is growing. A lot of other things are happening on top of the existing feature set. So first and foremost, the reason we are spending time on LinkedIn is that LinkedIn is the business network. There are tons of different of social networks out there. Don't have to name any of them, but there's Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and Snapchat and whatnot. But when it comes to business and when it comes to actually building business relationships, really the name of the game is LinkedIn. LinkedIn has started as the business network back in the day, and meeting people on LinkedIn sends a very clear message as to the intent of the conversation. I've had lots of discussions and arguments with other businesses, especially Facebook marketers and Instagram marketers, in terms of, hey, we can sell this product, hey, we can close this deal on top of Facebook. I've had a lot of outreach through Instagram from freelancers and small agencies saying, hey, we can close any type of deal on top of Instagram. But actually, if you take a look at the medium of the network, if you take a look at the actual intent of the network itself, it's really clear that low level, low end deals are a lot more accessible on top of let's say Facebook or Instagram than what could actually be achieved within a LinkedIn environment. Because even though executives are using networks such as Facebook and Instagram, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are in the right state of mind for doing business or hopping on business calls or dealing with any forms of cold calling or whatever be it. And even if they see the story in place or a sponsored post or anything in any of the other networks, again, that doesn't necessarily mean they are in the right state of mind, they are ready to do business. That's why trade shows exist as well, because trade shows and networking events and professional conferences are places to gather with people and talk shop. It's a lot different than going to a spa or going to play tennis and actually meet people. Yes, it is possible. Yes, networking is super important, but going to those business events, you know that everyone is actually looking for new business opportunities, new partnerships, new vendors, new hires, new anything. That's what makes LinkedIn such a powerful network. The very first thing, and my tip number one, when I'm discussing LinkedIn with other entrepreneurs or managers or anyone who actually isn't using actively LinkedIn, is really apply the best marketing practices you would apply for any other network whatsoever, which is essentially knowing your tribe. That's my very first tip when it comes to getting better at LinkedIn. There are several things that are mostly applicable to any other platform, but in the context of LinkedIn in particular, these are your buyer persona, your possible super fans, and their most painful problems. Now, why I'm putting a lot of emphasis on these three topics in particular. The first thing is you really need to know your buyer persona. And when I say buyer persona, I really want to refer to your ideal customer. There are hundreds of millions of people using LinkedIn. And again, the focus on the platform is professional networking. That doesn't necessarily mean that you need to speak to everyone and anyone, because this is going to hamper your efforts into delivering value on the platform. The main reason behind that is that the algorithm needs to be sticky, meaning that LinkedIn's algorithm itself works in a way that says, hey, let's figure out how many impressions we can deliver to different people and how many engagements these people are going to perform on that specific post or story or whatever it is. Meaning that they say, hey, let's present this post to, let's say, 1,000 people and figure out what percentage of them actually interact with the post. Like the more generic, the more broad spread this post is, unless it's really viral, unless it's something about charity or massive contributions that really apply to everyone else, this post is not going to get a lot of attention if it doesn't really cater to your specific audience. That's why you really need to know your buyer persona. The more you understand what percentage of this market, what segment you're actually focusing on, you're actually stressing on, it's going to be a lot harder to achieve anything significant, so to speak, in the grand scheme of things. And moreover, understanding your buyer persona means that you're going to consistently produce the same type of content for your ideal customer, which will make a lot of successful attempts into closing these customers and turning them into the second group of people, which I've enlisted here, which is super fans. Because super fans are your the most engaging out of your buyer persona people, meaning the people who engage the most often with your content, the people who almost always comment on your post, and everything else. If you have a Facebook page, or if you maintain brand accounts on Instagram, you know what I'm talking about. There are certain people who are always there, always supporting, always appreciating, always sharing. These are your super fans. You have to nurture them because they're going to help you grow your tribe further. And in order to really connect with your buyer persona, to make an attempt to build a strong connection with them, you need to focus on their most painful problems, right? Again, if it's a small mom and pop shop, that's probably going to be, gathering more clients for their own business, or hiring assistant staff that's helping them out, even though they can't really afford, or finding interns who can help out, or finding people who can hand over brochures or anything like that. If you're working with a large pharmacy, their major problems are probably going to be compliance and getting FDA approvals across different countries, and maybe attracting younger talent, because pharmacies and kind of the healthcare isn't really that exciting for most Gen Zs, and so on. So understanding your audience means that you understand their biggest pains and struggles, which is what makes it easier to build this type of content, to partner up with other people who understand these pains, to create webinars or live videos or anything else that's engaging and really helping everyone out. So focus on your tribe first. One of the biggest mistakes is just submitting all sorts of random content that doesn't really help you develop your brand. Because if you're posting about everything, essentially you're known for nothing. So specialize, niche down, speak to your buyer persona, cater to their specific business problems. One of the main matters around that is there's a Netflix show, Lucifer, which just kind of aired its last season, and the main character's main phrase is actually, "What is it you truly desire?" And I've actually embodied some of those mugs in my office, because that's kind of how I remind myself to always produce the type of content that is helpful to the buyer personas we work with. Again, that's how important it is. We have some posters here at the office. We have different types of reminders and charts and spreadsheets to help us produce the type of content that's really relevant to our target audience. The more often you help certain people, they see you as a thought leader within that industry. They're more willing to follow you. They're more willing to trust you when you, let's say, speak at an event, or when you create a training course. It just builds the type of connection you want to build with your ideal customers. Second thing is create a regular posting schedule. Uh, One of the biggest mistakes I've had when it comes to LinkedIn and other networks is just going on some form of sabbatical, or being on a hiatus for a couple months. This is really the worst thing that could happen. This is equally valid for Facebook or Instagram, or content marketing and SEO, or anything else that you do on a regular basis. Building a brand depends on consistency, which is why even if you don't stick to a very active interval of posting content, you just need to be consistent. And if you want to be really successful when it comes to LinkedIn, what I would suggest is post 4 to 7 times a week, where 7 is a stretch. Very few people actually post like once a day or even more, but 4 is fairly realistic, which essentially means every other day. You can create a posting schedule on, say, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday, Thursday, and maybe add a weekend day, because again, some people are also active on a weekend, and you also face less competition in terms of fewer people are actually posting content on weekends as well. In terms of posting hours, it's really hard to say, because what we find out, regardless of different studies, is that different audiences are active in different times of day. It's a little easier for Facebook and Instagram, because in fact, lots of people are active right before work, or while having their morning coffee, during coffee breaks, after business hours, and so on. When it comes to LinkedIn, it's a little trickier, because some people use it after business hours. Lots of people are using it for work, meaning in during business hours. So we need to test out different schedules as well. Especially if you work internationally, it gets a lot trickier because catering for both, say, American and European audience at the same time, and potentially trying to hoop in some Australian members or Pacific Asia members, it gets a lot trickier to just get everyone else together. So try with different posting hours, but in terms of a regular posting schedule, what I would suggest is submitting 4 to 7 times a week for a maximum success. And measuring that is a little bit tricky, but further in this conversation and later in this presentation itself, I'm going to present some ways that would help you measure data more successfully and actually figure out what works and what doesn't. So the next thing that I would definitely like to suggest is focus on building engaging content. Now, uh, ever since LinkedIn kind of turned into a content submission platform or content creation platform, which happened more or less over the past 2 years, a lot of new members joined LinkedIn in the hope of finding the Holy Grail, in the find of just easily connecting with their audiences, which is why right now people are experimenting quite a lot with different forms of content. And more importantly, we see people from different industries, people outside of the marketing or entrepreneurship space, testing out different forms of content. For example, it's really common to see real estate agents on LinkedIn or kind of even construction companies just trying to experiment and see if that's the network for them, meaning that they're not really complying with the best and traditional business practices, which in itself is very interesting because we in the digital marketing space are now able to gather more information and more statistics and find out influencers from different industries who speak for their audiences. And some of them are successful regardless of the well-established content strategies that we see in other channels. But in a nutshell, if you really want to be engaging, if you want to build some form of kind of credibility and some form of trust among your own tribe, focus on building the type of content that's actually engaging and actually invites your audience to participate. Of course, among these are posts and surveys. Some of them are actually possible within the LinkedIn platform itself. Posts have been quite popular during the past 6 to 7 months because, once again, they built engagement. LinkedIn is also interested in gathering and collecting more data because more data is always helpful, meaning that they distribute this type of information to more people. Additionally, you can post industry news, even though you have to be careful in terms of sharing, because sharing external links is always impacting your visibility. You always reach a lot fewer people while sharing external links, which is what you need to be aware of. But if you find internal resources on LinkedIn, such as the journalist that's actually posting native content on LinkedIn and sharing their content or tagging them with some conclusion or kind of a recap depending on the news, or finding, again, a media network that's maintaining their LinkedIn page and sharing their resources so that it actually comes off as native content, you're going to be successful. Additionally, success stories, personal wins, how you helped out someone, how you, were published on Forbes or Entrepreneur Inc. magazine, how you wrote the first chapter of your book. Of course, that's, gathering a lot more attention. It's kind of inviting some people with similar experiences. Personal fails and anecdotes, just revealing yourself, being more personal is very important to, as legal experts would say, it kind of resembles the piercing the corporate veil, which is essentially approaching a business through the individual behind the business. Questions, again, for engagement. Once again, if you try to fabricate, in a good sense, questions that your audience is going to engage with, that's going to be super helpful. Now, you need to find the line between viral questions that are really obvious in terms of, hey, we just need to gather attention, and actually helpful questions that are producing value. But I've seen a lot of these in my network, especially in terms of COVID, in terms of remote work, in terms of home productivity. Lots of these surveys can be gathered among your network, and they could be helpful in the sense of figuring out what's happening. And once again, since it's a double-edged sword, you need to be kind of aware of certain topics that may present you with the wrong information or may kind of cause the vocal minority to step in. And at the end of the day, this may not really seem authentic. So be careful, but at the same time, just engage more and more, and you're going to find your niche in terms when it comes to actually building this type of content that is more engaging and is welcoming more people to participate. Because in order to build a brand, in order to be a thought leader, you need a broad network. But even if you have a broad network, that doesn't mean that they're going to engage. The vast majority of my network is high-level executives of 8-figure, 9-figure companies, and most of them are trying to be cautious as to where they comment on and where they share feedback or public information, because their PRs have different expectations of them, but it doesn't mean they're not listening. Whenever we hop on calls, they always refer to some of my content, some of my slides, and other conversations that I've posted, meaning that I've gathered throughout the years that the community is really broad, but they are kind of ghost people just monitoring without really engaging. And this is impacting my virality efforts when it comes to distribution in terms of LinkedIn, because once again, what LinkedIn cares about is how many people are going to engage with a certain type of content. And if people don't like, don't comment, don't share, LinkedIn is essentially pushing this content further. So you need to find the right balance between finding your ideal audience, your buyer persona, and at the same time generating some legitimate engagement in order to keep your content pushed higher across everyone's feed. This is kind of the tricky balance, and this is kind of the main thing that networks like LinkedIn revolve around. Number 4 is posting native content. And I already alluded to this a bit earlier when it came to referring to news sources and industry news. So the most important thing, and that's literally for every network, posting content that's native to the platform, not external platform. Because LinkedIn and other networks, they do care about retaining people within their own network. And people leaving for an external resource is something that loses visitors, something that loses time spent on site, something that prevents more ads being served to people hanging out in the platform. This is why the more native content you post, the more favorable you're going to be before LinkedIn and your specific audience. So in terms of some specific examples, avoid sharing external links. If you want to share an article to your blog or so, try to find native ways to explain this article so that you don't directly link to it in your post body, because it's going to be leading to 5 to 10 times fewer visitors or fewer viewers of your specific post. Also, upload native videos. LinkedIn does support video uploads. So instead of linking to a YouTube video, try to upload native videos as possible. Now, there are certain limits in terms of timeframes. It's not always possible, but native videos used to be absolutely spectacular over the course of about 2 years. Back in the day, that's kind of how I doubled my uh, connections over the course of 5 months or so, simply because video was really strong. LinkedIn as a network was pushing video in terms of virality, and I was gathering about 10x the amount of viewers on videos as compared to traditional posts and articles and everything else, because this was the content format that LinkedIn really cared about. So posting native videos, even though it's not really as popular right now, it's not getting that much attention, even though some people are still very successful with video. Native videos are going to be a lot more successful for you as compared to posting external videos. So how to work around this? After all, you need to post relevant content or so forth. So how to actually do that? The most common thing among the network is posting the link in the first below the post, meaning that you're writing a LinkedIn post and you say, hey, I produced a great piece on how to close, preliminary plans for construction working companies building new real estate, for example. I've explained the 10 tips of doing deals, discounts, how to actually get your building funded ahead of time, or whatever it is, right? Whatever that is you mentioned in that specific article, and you post that in the post itself. And at the end of the post, you can say, the full piece is in the comments below, for instance, right? And then the first comment is just linked to your piece. And here's where I've explained the 10 major tips to close deals and fund your building project early on, again, as an example. So comments and links don't really work very well, and I'm not going to lie. However, they are not affecting your general rankability in terms of the platform, because in most cases, even if you have fewer eyeballs, you want to make sure that the people looking at your content see you as a trustworthy leader, not as a spammer, not as someone who's unaware of what's their target audience. And the more they like you, the more they're likely to click on that type of content. And even if they're not, it's about, again, building the community and building the network so that you have specific people that you can literally send a direct message to with your specific post, or get them to sign up for your newsletter, which is where you post your content as well. So you just need to be a bit more creative than posting content straight onto the platform directly. Number 5 is documents. This is my most favorite kind of content format, and it's still extremely successful for about a year and a half now, maybe more. It's kind of one of the best content formats on LinkedIn. What documents actually represent, and the reason why they're very successful, is LinkedIn allows you to submit presentations both in portrait mode and landscape mode. And submitting those presentations enables you to provide dynamic and more engaging content, which is prettier and could contain a lot of information about your brands and resources, could be promotional the same way it is educational. And once again, it's really helpful at the end of the day. You can directly upload PowerPoint decks, or you can upload Google Docs. Like, you can pretty much have an ebook of 20 pages and upload it to Slides and actually have your ebook available through LinkedIn. And if it's a freebie, you actually get a lot of extra engagement and a lot of extra followers and extra attention once again. So as an example, Slides normally get 5 to 15 times more engagement as compared to regular posts or images or anything else, which is extremely wonderful and a great reason to actually invest the time of working on Slides. I would say that right now on LinkedIn, that's probably the maximum value for most people can gather out of LinkedIn in terms of thought leadership, in terms of brand awareness, simply because, once again, it's a great format itself. In itself, it provides a lot of information. It's not as short as a regular post. It's prettier. It takes a lot of landscape, meaning that more people see it. It requires more effort to produce, meaning that LinkedIn rewards that effort as well. And it also kind of ties LinkedIn to something that other platforms don't have. Because, again, LinkedIn, from a business standpoint, they want to compete with the other networks, and they want to steal engagement from Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat or any other network, meaning that they need to be unique, right? Instagram introduced carousels, which is the ability to post 10 images one next to another, and that's kind of the maximum. It's really great on Instagram. It's getting a lot of attention as well. We use it in our Instagram networks too, but LinkedIn allows you to submit larger content, including book size format, A4 papers. This one, for example, is 18 pages out of my own profile. So it's just cruising Instagram itself. And again, other networks just don't have this type of format. So they are unique in this way. They also own SlideShare, which is another reason why they're pushing this format, because it is a competitive advantage for the platform. So once again, in order to figure out what makes a network successful, what makes your content successful, you need to find out what drives the business forward. What would make LinkedIn more successful? What will increase increase the market value of the company? Well, more visitors and more engagement and more of everything. How to do that is, well, submit outstanding information that keeps people around. How to do that? Well, try to present formats that other people don't have in other networks so that they gather more people on LinkedIn, because more people can actually lead slides straight on LinkedIn, right? That's kind of the thinking process of reverse engineering what's successful for a platform. And the reason I'm explaining that is because what's successful right now will not necessarily be successful in a year or two, and you just need to understand the rationale behind what does success mean in terms of a platform. LinkedIn Live. What LinkedIn also presents across most regions is LinkedIn Live. Now, unfortunately, it's not really available among every single region in the world, but at the same time, it's getting broader and broader accessibility across more regions, including in most of Europe and, of course, the United States. Now, one of the problems with LinkedIn, and I would say this is kind of the biggest pet peeve for LinkedIn itself, is that it doesn't have a native record live button as pretty much every other platform has, which again makes it really tricky to just get your phone, start the LinkedIn app, and start recording live. Now, there's a good and bad side of everything. Once again, everything is kind of a double-edged sword. Now, the bad part is you need to use an external service such as Restream.io or a separate kind of third-party app that deals with streaming itself. The good thing is that a lot of people have LinkedIn Live, but because of the extra steps they need to take in order to go live on LinkedIn, they don't do that. So you still have the competitive edge on being among the fewer people recording lives on top of LinkedIn, and again, gathering engagement and gathering your audience on top of LinkedIn. So that's why LinkedIn Lives are also so important right now and still achieve great results, because you can be a pioneer in terms of presenting LinkedIn Lives, which is essentially great. Now, in order to make a live successful, I would say you need to treat it as a webinar. And webinars are planned ahead of time. You don't just go live on LinkedIn and expect thousands of people to come up. Now, if you schedule it ahead of time, if you gather people around, if you send invites or something, you can still go live. You're still going to be live and receiving questions live, but you have a broader audience that's already there waiting for you. And then a lot of other people are going to come up from different places just noticing that you're streaming live right now. Another reason why this is so important is networks such as Instagram and Facebook and Twitter are a lot more real time, meaning that when you post something on Twitter, essentially, if someone opens their feed within the next 2 minutes, your post is probably going to be there because kind of the feed is really prioritizing recent content. If you go on LinkedIn, it's likely that you're going to see, content pieces that are 4 days old, simply because the network isn't really as cluttered with latest news. It's more about generally decent content submitted over the past few days within your network. So with that in mind, LinkedIn Lives are really hard to make viral without preliminary preparation, simply because even if you're streaming for an hour, it's likely that over 60% of your audience is not even going to notice that because they're not scrolling as much, their feeds aren't really kind of prioritizing live content and so on. But at the same time, if you prepare your audience, if you go live on LinkedIn so they can interact with you, well, then it gets a lot better. The other good thing about using kind of an external software, such as Restream, for example, which I'm personally using and I'm not affiliated with, is you can accomplish omnicast streaming, meaning that while streaming on LinkedIn, you can also stream on other networks at the same time, such as Facebook Live or Twitter's Periscope or some other networks. The one exception for right now is Instagram, because they're working with a proprietary API, which isn't currently accessible by other systems. But once again, long story short, really great. If you have access to it, and great. If you generally are active on LinkedIn, you're going to unlock some of those features because that's kind of how LinkedIn works in itself. Number 7 is collaborations. In a nutshell, what you need to prioritize is pairing up with other creators. This would let you gather a broad audience. This is going to help you cross-sell and upsell with them and work on content and media together, which means same effort, twice the content, or half the effort, still the same content, which is once again excellent. So pairing up with other people, like in the same manner of how influencers work and partner up together, that's what you need to accomplish on LinkedIn too. Tap into your network, touch base with other business leaders and partners and vendors and everyone else and say, hey, do you want to pair up and work on some co-hosting content, or jump on a LinkedIn live together, or create slides together and just share them and engage with each other and so on. This is really going to help you now, because one of the other perks of LinkedIn is, unlike other networks, LinkedIn is featuring quite a lot of content that is being liked by people in your first level tier, like your direct connections. Meaning that it's a lot easier if you get a lot of likes. It's a lot easier to go to second level connections and third level connections, which essentially within your Facebook feed, it's a lot harder to actually accomplish that, especially if you're using a personal profile and not a page. But LinkedIn is stressing a lot on content that's generally liked among LinkedIn, meaning that if you have a friend and they like your post, their first level connections, even if they don't know you, are probably going to see your post as well. That's why collaborations are important. You can expand and get amplified engagement, and you can kind of tap into each other's audiences and even your people within your second level circles. For that reason, there are certain communities or specific communities that act as engagement pods. This is something that's broadly known, even though it's not public and it's not necessarily legal. Like some of the automated tools definitely don't make it super legal. But in a nutshell, it's gathering with specific people and having an agreement to communicate with one another together. Now, companies, I would say, are the original inventors of pods, because a lot of companies, especially startups, are engaging with companies' content as kind of a company policy, meaning that, hey, we are sponsoring an event, we need everyone to engage and share and yada, yada, yada. Hey, we are hiring new people, we need everyone else to engage and yada, yada, yada. Hey, we won an award, or hey, we did something else. You get the point. So companies have been doing this for a while, or in some cases, just company executives, they tend to indirectly create their own pods through employees who are actively engaging with their own content. But for the mere mortals out there who don't really have, broad, vast, indefinite communities, it's really important to find out ways of how you can engage with people. Once again, the natural, native, traditional, standard way of doing things is gathering with 10 or 20 people, creating a group DM or a WhatsApp group or something else together, and kind of agreeing on communicating with each other's materials just in terms of a partnership, so that whenever anyone posts something, they post in the group and everyone else hops on whenever they get a chance and engage with it, right? Another way to do that, once again, and the validity of this, or kind of it's the way it works, it's questionable, even though, I mean, they are not necessarily problematic, but you can also automate it in the sense that's not really legal, is using services such as Lamport or Linkboost, which actually help you join specific communities and automatically engage with other people from different communities. I'm not going to kind of get in detail of what exactly they do, simply because it's in the gray area. But even using one of these tools, you can create your own community and invite your own network, so that like everyone is aware when you post something and they like automatically, because you have this agreement outside of the network itself. So in that sense, it's something that kind of saves time of a community that's already preliminary agreed on engaging with one another. So don't underestimate pods. Pods are really helpful. However you structure them and however you do them, pods are really helpful in terms of increasing engagement. What happens within the first 24 hours is really important, especially what happens within the first, I would say, hour is also very important. So the more people you can get to your content early on engaging, this is going to help you expand your reach onward. Because if you get no engagement during the first 24 hours, I can almost guarantee you that nobody else is ever going to see your posts, because LinkedIn is going to say, okay, tons of people saw this post, nobody engaged, we're just going to kill it, right? So this type of engagement is what helps LinkedIn calibrate its own algorithm in order to achieve great results. Now, how to figure out what works and what doesn't, how to kind of make conclusions and gather statistical information. LinkedIn's statistical engine is really poor, and I would say they provide very limited information in terms of what behaves well and what doesn't, what's successful and what isn't, and so on. Now, luckily, there are other tools such as Shield that essentially provide LinkedIn analytics on steroids. What Shield really helps with is really compiling insights on your profile over time and analyzing post engagement, meaning that Shield is really tracking historical data about your posts over time and letting you filter this information across different periods of time, like daily, weekly, quarterly, from the beginning of the year over the past year, getting different filters that help you out: how many people engage, how many people clicked, what's the click-through rate, and so on and so on. I'm going to provide you a very brief example of my own profile from earlier this year. So these are some examples of kind of my Shield posts and kind of distribution across all of them. And now there are certain things that you can notice here which are really interesting. For example, these three, like the kind of the larger numbers which are on the higher end, are all slides. I post slides exclusively on Tuesdays, so I know that for a fact that all of them are slides. And you can easily see that some posts literally got no engagement. Like this one probably was stopped or broken, but like compared to 1,000 or 2,000 views, or even with 7,000 views, slides just get anywhere from 10 to 20,000 views. A lot more engagement, a lot more likes, a lot more comments, and that really works really well. That's why we're discussing slides. That's kind of the definition of the document format here too. Now, but that also depends on other factors like posting hours and posting times. For instance, you can see that the worst time to post for me, even though this is slides too, the worst time that almost gets half of what this gets is at 10 p.m. as compared to 5 p.m., right? So 5 p.m. Brings a lot more traffic as compared to what is being published later in the evening. So some of these conclusions over time is going to be easier to deduct, is going to be easier to figure out, and that's what Shield is going to be super helpful with. Once again, if you're not a data geek, you can just monitor engagements and behavior and by testing different hours and just figuring out what hours you can stick to. But Shield is really helpful in just really have an educated opinion of what works and what doesn't. They also have other trends of how do likes grow over time, number of shares over time, number of comments, engagement rates going down and up, number of posts published during a certain period of time, total number of views, and a lot of other things that you can really work with. And kind of as a wrap up, so that we can kind of get to the full picture of LinkedIn. Let's not forget the other data formats that LinkedIn provides. LinkedIn also has articles, so you can pretty much submit large blog posts or resubmit, republish information on top of LinkedIn. So that's something that could be really helpful. You can work on native video, like once again, just record videos native to the LinkedIn platform. There are LinkedIn stories, though they do stop them and start them back and forth, but LinkedIn stories have actually won some deals for me, so I've seen them working really well. Pinned content is something super helpful, meaning that in your own profile, when you scroll down, your latest posts are going to be displayed, but you can also pin posts that matter a lot more to you. So this way you can pin hiring people, you can pin your latest book that you just wrote, or anything else that's super important, so that more and more and more people actually look into this specific piece of content over a prolonged period of time. LinkedIn Premium, of course, and newsletters, which is one of my favorite features of LinkedIn. However, it's not really public yet. To sum it up, what LinkedIn really allows is creating newsletters within the platform Initially, they called them series back in early 2019, I believe. Then they renamed them as newsletters, but essentially you can create articles under the same category and people can sign up for this category and they get subscribed and they receive notifications for recurring content that you produce. Extremely powerful, a great substitute of a traditional newsletter, a great way to also move people to your traditional newsletter. Just again, don't ignore and don't discard these LinkedIn features as well. Just try to build a more comprehensive, broader suite of content that really helps you move forward. So that's all from me, and I'm really hope it's going to be helpful. You can find me on different networks, LinkedIn, of course. Just look up Mario Peshev. I'm also on Twitter and Instagram, and maintain my own blog with business advice. But essentially, what I really want to say is, if you're not using LinkedIn actively, please do start. The network is still underutilized, even though more and more people hop onto the network. Still, a very minor fraction of people are creating and submitting content. So this is a great way to start. This is a great way to join, and this is a great way to achieve results by consistently submitting content on LinkedIn. Hope you enjoy the rest of the event, and thank you for listening, and see you on LinkedIn. Bye-bye.
happy to be here with you all at European Digital Week. My name is Vincent Dutot, and I'll be presenting to you my topic. The topic is quite simple, as you will all see. I will talk about personal branding and e-reputation and how to manage as a professional, as a social media specialist, or as an entrepreneur, how to manage your online presence. So let's start. So just a quick overview of who I am. As I was telling you all, my name is Vincent Dutot. I'm a full professor at a business school called IPAG, located in France, but also I'm a researcher in social media, reputation. Overall, I'm looking at the impact of technology on performance, either from a firm perspective or from an individual perspective. As final job, I'm also a consultant in digital transformation. If you want to follow my news, you can go on my website called www.vincentdutot.com. The topic of today presentation is, as I was telling you, personal branding, e-reputation, and give you a lot of tips, a lot of tools to use in order to manage what you post online and what people are doing about yourself. But first, let's start with a few numbers. In the last minute in the world, just take a look at what happened. In 1 minute worldwide, you have almost 1.3 million people that actually log in on Facebook. But what you should understand that on Facebook, usually the time they spend for each logging is less than a minute. It's around 30 to 45 seconds. Sorry. So the idea is like, the more you go on Facebook, you probably go like about 500 to 600 times in US. On Facebook in Europe, it's a little bit less than that, but most of the interaction you do on the platform are less than 30 seconds. On YouTube, in the last minute, almost 5 million videos were viewed. And in terms of engagement, people are actually watching way longer, staying way longer on the platform than on any other platform that we'll be talking about in a few seconds. On Instagram, 700,000 scrolling in the last minute. On Tinder, almost 2 million swipes. Most of the time, men are swiping on the left, saying yes, I want, and women are still waiting. In the same minute, a bit more than 1.2 million views on Twitch. Twitch, wonderful platform dedicated to social gaming, online gaming, mainly for youngsters. We talk about people, individuals that are younger than 13 years old. If I'm following up on social media, you can see Snapchat, 2.5 million snaps created in the last minute. And talking about Netflix, almost 800,000 hours watched worldwide in a single minute. So why am I talking about that? When you are going online, when you are trying to listen to the conversation, trying to position yourself about in regard to all those platforms, what you want to understand that on every single platform I'm presenting and I've been talking, people are looking for you, either you or your brand or your competitors or maybe your product. So you have to be present, but also you have to understand that each of these platforms are actually have actually their own specificities and characteristics. For example, on Facebook, connection time are very short. On YouTube, they are longer than that. On Twitter, you have also to understand how it works to be able to push yourself as a brand or as an individual in a good way. And it's exactly what I want to talk to you about during this presentation, because when you know that every platform is working in a specific way, you have to understand that you, as an individual or other firm, you have to position yourself in a specific way as well. From a personal perspective, you have to actually know about that number, 85%. 85% of recruiters in the world are actually using the web to look for either candidate information or to look for a new individual for a specific job or just to gather information about yourself. So what it means is that actually you have to know first what people are saying about yourself at all time. And linked to that is what we call the term e-reputation. If you know what people are saying about you, or they actually grade you, or they every time you go into the restaurant right now, you look for the green realms talking about TripAdvisor, for example. So first you have to understand what people are saying about yourself. And second, you have to be part of the discussion. And being part of the discussion means managing your personal branding. And those two topics are what I want to talk about today in this amazing event as European Digital Week. So what personal branding is? In a simple way, personal branding is the practice of an individual trying to promote his or herself, her own image, her own skills through marketing as well as advertising techniques commonly used to promote a brand. So stating differently is trying to promote you as an individual the same way you can promote your brand or your product. So by trying to look at this approach, an individual aims to become a brand himself, but more importantly, a recognized brand. And from an entrepreneur perspective, it means trying to humanizing the company. So getting away from this company perception and making it more humanized. And linked to that, what you have to understand as an individual, as a company, is that personal branding leads to 4 powers. The first power is like every time you work on your personal image, you get known, you get recognized, you get ultimately famous. But why is it important for a single individual to promote himself or herself? Put it very simply, like when you try to publish, and when you publish from a personal social network, usually it generates 560% more reach than when you push the same content from a professional social network. And leading to engagement, it means 8 times more engagement. So the fact that you push and that you actually present something from your personal account will have a better effect than from the professional account. Your community is more engaged, your community is more linked to an individual than a brand. Power number 2 is like by establishing a trusting relationship with the customer from an individual perspective. You will lead, you will learn when you gain more trust and recommendation. So what you have to understand is that usually when a people wants to buy something or wants to get from something, is actually influence. And this influence comes naturally from a person he or she knows. We have this number 88%. 88% of every purchase we do as an individual are actually influenced by either advertising or a person. And the impact of a person is way more important than any ads or any commercial you can receive. Leading that trust, trust means loyalty. So the third power that personal branding leads to is more loyalty to you as an individual, and ultimately more loyalty to your company. And what we as a researcher actually found out is that customers and individuals have more volatility to a company than to an individual. So they feel more engaged to the communication that you as an individual will push compared to the one you could push through your company website or social networks. And the final power is like personal branding can become a competitive advantage. If I'm just thinking about LinkedIn, the network that you actually create and do and elaborate and through your career on that social network will become a competitive advantage for you. And as an individual, you have a crucial role, which leads to success, and success in terms of communication, success in terms of engagement, and success in terms of leading to more performance at the end for your company. So just positioning yourself as a brand in terms of right communication, touching the right people, and leading them to more engagement with you would lead ultimately to more engagement to your company. But more specifically, in order to be successful as an entrepreneur or as a CEO or as a professional, you have to understand that you have to communicate about 3 things. So your personal branding will have to be managed regarding those 3 elements. The first one will be the individual, the person that you are. Of course, the project means the company that you want to develop or the project you want to be part of or just communicate about. And of course, the target. Who are you targeting in terms of communication? So more specifically, it's quite simple. You have to talk about your talents and your strength. So what it means is like, what are your assets? What are your skills? What What is your expertise? Why is it crucial for an individual to follow you and to listen to what you are talking about? Most of the professionals that are here at this European Digital Week are experts in specific field, and you have to tell people what you're good at. So sometimes it's quite difficult for people to manage and to find their skills and what they are good at, but sometimes it's not. So what makes you different? Maybe it's based on your background. Maybe you've created a company at a young age, and you've learned some stuff, you manage some stuff, you have some failures as well. So how your background led to where you are now. What are your style? Maybe you have a specific universe you want to develop, or maybe this is a universe that you created that is the fundamental of your company. So by presenting that to your community, you get interest as well. So what are your values? What are your passions? Put it simple. What are your interests? And trying to find a way to present those interests, those values, the background, those differences to your community. And by doing that, people are actually acknowledging your talents and your strengths. So number two, like second aspect you have to present when you talk about personal branding is a project. Why is it worth for an individual to follow you and to follow you through that path of that road of creating or communicating about something? So what is the vision? What is the vision of the project? Why is it important for people to follow you and to actually engage with you in that topic? What is the mission? What is the contribution? Right now, 1 or 2 years, into the COVID situation, maybe you contribute to the CSR, to the environment, to the ecology, and so on. So what is the mission? How you contribute to the world in a way? How you contribute to your community? What is it worth following you? What are your ambitions? What is the ambition of the project or the company you created? What is it worth, once again, to follow you? And the third dimension is are the targets. What is the industry you want to communicate with? What is the industry you want to be part of? So what is the market you target? And based on that, how are you going to develop your networks and your contact? So thinking about the relationship you want to develop, thinking the prospection, and thinking about the prescribers as well. So who should be your first target, your first relay in terms of communication? Once you've defined those targets, and of course you relay that to you and your project and your mission, your personal branding will be way easier in terms of development. And what you have to understand is once you've linked the 3 elements, you have to understand 10 key points. And talking about personal branding is easy in a way, but also quite complex, because you have to think like day-to-day perception, day-to-day communication, but as well thinking long-term, because developing personal branding takes time. Okay, so it starts from the positive complicity. You also have to understand that every single individual, every single company or prospect that interacts with you, you have to treat them in the same way. So based on that community perception, community creation, and the way you interact with them, it's the path to success. Either in the number 2 marketing method, what we call the halo of success. So how you define and how you avoid negative statement, and always stay positive. I'm not talking about like lying in a way, but also finding the positive way in everything that you publish and everything that you transmit. Of course, success draws from success. So presenting what you're good at, presenting your strength, once again, your expertise, your path, and your past. So based on that, people can actually get to know you better and see themselves in you. So of course, you have to manage your self-image. It means what you are good at and how do you define yourself. And based on that, you will define your attitude. You sell some more stuff, and of course you're going to get trust, and you're going to manage those networks of trust. So you will try to develop word of mouth. You're going to try to develop as well the community that are going to interact with you. And based on that, you have also to think long term. What is the perception? What is the community you want to have right now, and how you want it to be developed and to developed? So what is the main goal of the communication? As a professional, your main goal should be developing a community, not selling stuff. Okay, the idea is by developing this community on the, I would say, the long-term perspective, of course, you're going to gain more loyalty, more trust, and ultimately selling more. But at first, you will have to think about developing communication and community perception. Based on that, you will be able to sell some stuff. The top 3 mistakes I've been seeing based on e-reputation and personal branding for quite a few years now. The first one is people trying to be false or to lie. So don't try to create a false identity. Just stay true to yourself. And this is the basis of personal branding. Just presenting what you do, what you did, and what you're going to do. And based on that, trust me, people are going to get in touch with you, engage with you. Also, you don't have to, of course, presenting what you are and what you do, and most of the time, brand and individual are thinking about the logo. Okay, of course, logo is part of the personal branding. It's part of who you are. It can show quite a few elements about yourself. Are you dynamic? Are you more like strict, or are you more traditional? Of course, it's quite important, but it's not just a logo. As I was telling you, you have to think about you, your project, and the target. So the logo is part of it, but it's not all of it. And of course, you evolve as an individual, so your personal branding has to evolve as well. As an entrepreneur, as a company, you will change through times. Sometimes you have a new experience, they're gonna drift and change totally your experience, the way you see things. So at the same time, your communication has to evolve as well. So your personal branding cannot be stuck in the same way for 5 or 10 years. It means changing the pictures that you have on social media to also show your community that you change through times. And why? Just to keep it real and to keep it the more close to who you really are. Okay, so those personal branding is who you are. You also have to understand how people perceive and react to everything that you communicate. So, and this is what e-reputation is. Put it simply, reputation or e-reputation is the image that we as an individual we have, but also we have to an individual. So what is the image we have of an individual or an organization that comes from all the traces that concern him or her or the company on the internet? Telling differently, like all the things that the company push or write or sells or send or shows on the internet will influence the perception that we have. So based on that, we're gonna grade or have a perception of the company. So on the one end, it's the identity. So the image we build, the skill we put forward, and all the points of differentiation that we have from a company. And on the other end is what we call the reputation, is what people say about us. So if you look for Google My Business, for example, you have all the stars. Okay, that shows the perception of the company. Putting very simply is most of the time what Google says about your brand or what Google says about you. When you think that Google has probably a little bit more than 90% of the search market worldwide. So when a company is looking for something, or when an individual or when a consumer is looking for something, it goes through Google. So being in top position in terms of SEO is quite important, but more important is the perception, the stars, the evaluation. So talking about e-reputation is simple. And if I'm just doing that for myself, for example, if you look for Vincent Dutot online on Google, you could say, look, I mean, the first 2 or 3 pages are actually content that I've either been adding myself or good content going from the different company I've been working. So of course the iPad, the school I'm in, LinkedIn as well, and a lot of pictures. So when you think about it in a simple way, say, look, it looks quite good. So the first perception of myself from your point of view could be great. Meaning, look, a lot of pictures standing with E, and what is work. But if you go, and of course, quite a few results in terms of Google search. But if you look deeply, let's say I'm going to look at the images. So in details, you can see what, okay, maybe the first images were good, but if I'm trying to look deeper, you can see that out of the first 15 pictures, you have 2 that are totally, different from the perception. The one on the left-hand side is actually someone, I don't know about him at all. And the second one is someone called Vincent Dutot as well, a soccer player in the 4th or 5th division in France. And I've been, trying to delay this picture, or at least to make it, appearing lower in the terms of results for the last 10 years, but it doesn't work. So no matter how good you are, no matter what you do, you have at least to know what is going on about yourself. So of course, when you think about the overall perception, a lot of pictures about myself, a lot of good content, but still some few stuff that actually are misleading the consumer. So you have also to follow, I'm not saying all the time, but at least at a good frequency, what is going on about yourself. So if I'm going back to online reputation, it's quite simple in a way. You have 3 different strategies that you can manage or monitor. The first one is monitoring. So we have to listen to what is going on about yourself or about your company. So using tools, and I'm going to describe the 3 of them just on the next slide. So what are people saying about yourself? Are there some stuff about yourself? Of course, you can also have the defensive strategy. The defensive is, the one most of the firms or individuals are choosing is like, I'm going to wait for something to happen. And once it's happened, then I'm going to try to develop and to manage my e-reputation. It's not always the good one, but it's sometimes, it's most of the time the most used because you don't have any money to spend on e-reputation. And of course, you can also have the promotional strategy, which is more a push strategy, meaning as a company or as an individual, I'm going to use social media and digital to promote my company and to actually push the good content and the good elements. So I don't have to worry or to bother about any bad stuff. And no matter which strategy you're going to pick, you have to understand that it's linked to 6 concepts. The first 2 are, in my opinion, the most important ones. Transparency and honesty. Every time you publish something and it's quite close to personal branding, you don't lie. You have to tell them the truth in a good way and in an honest way. So when a politician is saying something and trying to manipulate the opinion on the crowd, it doesn't work. Ultimately, we're going to find the good stuff and the right stuff, and we're going to put that in front of the first thing that was said. So just be honest, be transparent. Of course, define the process. Depending on what happens, who is going to react, who is going to tell, who is going to give the first answer. For example, is what we call on social media, social CRM. You have to understand on every single platform when someone is not happy or when someone is asking you a question, you have a timeline to respect in terms of answering. So it's what I call the fast answer. For example, on Facebook, you have 2 hours to answer any comment. And the same delay goes 24 hours. Okay, so if it's 2 a.m. or 2 p.m., you always have those 2 hours to answer this bad element, or this bad comment. On Twitter, the delay is 30 minutes. So depending on the platform, you have rules to respect, and based on that, it would mean integrating all the strategy and all these elements from a more strategical perspective. When you decide as a company or as an individual to go online, you have to understand the rules of the platform you're using. And most of the time it means more flexibility from a firm perspective. It would mean changing the way you interact with individuals, changing the way you interact with customers, and ultimately probably changing the way you do CRM, customer relationship management. Of course, a lot of tools exist, but I just wanted to present 3 that are quite simple and quite easy to manage. Of course, the first one is Google Alert, a free tool that actually allow you to listen to everything that happens on Google. As I was telling you, more than 90% of the search in Europe were actually made using Google. So instead of going every day in Google and trying to do search, you can create your own alert, and by doing that, you will receive once a week or once a day, or when the name is mentioned online, you receive an email from Google stays presenting to you the website where the name of the company or the name of the competitors or your name is actually mentioned. And based on that, you can see what it's done, if it's good or bad, and then you can manage an answer. You have different other tools. Social Mention is quite good. It's a tool that dedicated to social media listening. So it's more about understanding what is going on social media platforms. And of course, we have Talkwalker, which is quite close to Google Alert as well, doing almost the same thing on every single platform. And the beauty of Google Alert as well as Talkwalker is you can do that in any single language. So depending on where you're listening this conference from, you can design and adapt Talkwalker to your native language, which is always good. And you can add a lot of stuff, of course, Hootsuite, for example, in terms of publication on social media, Google Trends, quite simple as well to follow the trends. Where do the people, do the research about yourself, in which country, which region within your country. So a lot of different tools that you can manage. So in order to conclude that presentation, I just want to give you 5 tips. 5 tips to manage efficiently your personal branding as well as your reputation. First, you always have to monitor your presence online. Once you go online, and I'm sure that by listening to this conference and to my speech, but probably to all the conferences you've been listening to during this week, you are an expert or professional or about strategy and digital strategy. So you know the importance of knowing what people are thinking about yourself. So please always monitor your presence online. Just make sure as well to separate professional and personal communication, and more importantly, when you develop a personal branding. For example, on Facebook, you can have a personal Facebook account as well as a professional account. So try to understand that every time you publish something, it's easier from the personal perspective and the professional perspective. LinkedIn is all about professional. You don't need to have friends in terms of contact. You need to have leads or quality leads, and probably people that you can transform to customers. So it's really professional. YouTube as well, you can have a personal YouTube account, but also a professional as well. So try to separate those two to be more efficient. Of course, don't overestimate your time. What it means is, like, by going online, you can be, it's overwhelming being online and try to manage that and to be present and active on every platform and to be good and to be recognized as an expert or as a leader in that platform, becoming an influencer. Of course, your time is precious, and you have to understand that you should pick 1 or 2 social media platforms that you know that are good for you and also good for your customers, and stick with those 2 at first. It leads to the fourth point, 4 tips, that is choosing the right platform for the right purpose. Depending on the strategy you want to. Let's say you want to develop customer relationship management. Some platforms are better than the others. For example, Twitter is quite famous for customer relationship management. Facebook as well in terms of content creation. You are operating in a B2B industry. Of course, you have to be good on LinkedIn, but also on YouTube. I really love Airbus YouTube page because they actually allow their employees to present themselves, to present their job through their channel. So it's also a good way to humanize as well the company from an individual perspective. And the 5th tips, probably the most important one, is don't lie. No matter what you do, either it's personal branding, reputation, communication strategy, please stick to the truth. And by doing that, you're going to make sure that your overall perception will be the good one. Thank you very much. My name is Vincent Dutot, and I hope that you enjoyed the element I've been talking about. And if you need anything, just get in touch with me through my website, vincentdutot.com, or through LinkedIn. Have a nice day.
Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda, and I'm so excited to be talking to you all today about TikTok. We're going to be learning about everything you need to know about TikTok marketing so that you can use TikTok to organically attract and convert your followers into customers and clients. So let's get started. A little bit about myself. Hi, I'm Amanda. I am an Instagram and TikTok strategist. I am based in Sarasota, Florida, in the United States, And my interest in social media started when I was 12 years old. I started using Facebook and I just loved it. And so the internet really has changed a lot since then, but my love for creating content for social media and really just connecting with people around the world has remained the same. So that's enough about me. Let's jump into how to use TikTok for your business. So on today's agenda, you are going to be able to learn what kinds of videos your business should be making on TikTok. Number two, you're going to understand how the TikTok algorithm works. And then lastly, you are going to be able to create a custom strategy to grow your business on TikTok. So like I mentioned, first we're going to learn what kinds of videos your business should be making on TikTok. But before we do that, let's first quickly talk about what the app really is and some stats to help you, determine if TikTok is a good social media platform for your business. So what exactly is TikTok? Well, if you didn't know, it's a short form video sharing app that allows users to create videos under 3 minutes on any topic. And you can add music to it, so it's a very interactive, very engaging type of social media platform. So here's a breakdown of TikTok users by region. There are so many millions of people using this app across the world. In Southeast Asia, there are 198 million. In North America, there are 105 million. In Latin America, 64 million. And in Europe, 98 million. And this is as of 2020. So still, that's so many followers, and it just continues to grow. So right now, as a whole on TikTok, 81% of TikTok users are under the age of 39. This is a huge opportunity for businesses who are trying to target a younger age demographic. So if your business is trying to use TikTok, to grow, then, if your age demographic is under 39, it's an excellent, excellent opportunity. So here's the breakdown. Under 18 years old, that's around 28% of TikTok users. 19 to 29 years old, that's around 35%, which is the largest portion. And then we have 29 to 39-year-olds, that's around 18%. And then lastly, 39 and older, that's around 20%. So, you still definitely can use TikTok if you're trying to attract, that older demographic. But I would say if your target audience is under the age of 39, you should absolutely be on TikTok. So here's the breakdown of the gender demographics. It is primarily women that are on TikTok at 59%, and then there's 39% men. But, I would say whether or not you're trying to target just women or just men, I think it's still a great app that you can definitely experiment with on. So here are the number of active users across popular social media platforms. So as you can see here, Facebook is just below 3 billion. They're at 2.9 billion. And then we have YouTube that is at 2.4 billion monthly active users. Instagram is at 1.4 billion monthly active users. TikTok just recently, within the past couple of months, reached 1 billion active monthly users, which is huge considering that TikTok has only been around for 4 or 5 years, whereas Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram have been around longer than that. So it definitely goes to show that TikTok is a very fast growing app compared to others. And then we have Snapchat at around 500 million monthly active users and Pinterest at 480 monthly users. So that kind of gives you a breakdown of how TikTok compares to other social media apps. So now let's talk about the types of videos that you can create on TikTok. I always recommend to have a goal before you start creating a video. So I break it down into 3 different types of videos. You can either entertain, educate, or inspire. So for entertaining videos, the nature of TikTok is very easy to create videos that are entertaining. So I will give you some examples here shortly. Number two, educational videos. The videos that provide a lot of value, meaning a lot of educational tips, tend to also perform very well. So educational videos are just a great opportunity to share knowledge with other users within a TikTok video. And lastly, inspiring videos are very, very fun. You can use this type of video to encourage or motivate, inspire someone watching the video. So let's show some examples. So for entertaining TikTok videos, these can be trending songs, they can be trending dances, it can just be as simple as a funny story. And this type of video, entertaining videos, just really create a connection with your target audience. Anyone who resonates with your video, it'll just increase that connection with them. So this is an example over here on the right that I have of a video of a baby that was dancing, and this video ended up going viral, meaning millions of people saw this video, and then all of a sudden people started creating videos like you see in the screenshot here of people doing the dance that the baby was doing. So that is called a trend. It's where someone uses the same song or the same dance, and then millions of people jump on that trend. So that is a large portion of videos on TikTok are trends. And I'll definitely talk more about that. But yeah, so these are entertaining videos and they're a great way to connect with your audience. Second was educational videos, and these are really great. I think no matter if you are a service provider or if you sell products, you can definitely create educational videos. You can share a solution to your target audience's problem. You can share a how-to video, like how to use your product that you sell. You can even answer a question that maybe someone has about your product or service. And this is a great type of content to create because it really just will allow you to educate your target audience on your product or service. And so this example that I have here on the right is of a woman who is, she does influencer and social media marketing, and she's teaching her audience in this video 3 Instagram growth hacks that actually work. So she says that in the beginning of the video, and then she shared tips to give, to help you grow your Instagram. So that's an example of an educational video. And then lastly, inspiring. So inspiring videos can look, there's so many ways that you can inspire a person within a video, but some examples that I have here are sharing a transformation or a success story, and sharing, or even sharing results that your target audience wants to see that you can help them with your business, with your product or service. So you can use this type of video to really just show your target audience what they can get out of your product or service. And so, for example, this woman, she showed an image of her skin before and then 30 days later, and she shared how this liquid collagen product just changed her life. So that's a great transformational story, inspirational story video that you could create on TikTok. So the tools that you need to create a video, you actually don't need much at all, but your phone camera and some creativity is definitely the basics. The great thing about TikTok is that it's very low production quality videos that tend to perform best. So this means that you do not need any fancy equipment or any, professional experience or skills. It can be very, very simple. In fact, most of the videos that perform really well on TikTok are videos that are just very simple and anyone can create. So I would say the only thing you really want to make sure is that your video is taken in good lighting. You want to make sure that, you or whatever you're featuring in your video is pretty clear, that it doesn't look too grainy or hard to see in the video. So learning outcome number 2, now let's understand how the TikTok algorithm works. Before we dive into the algorithm, I first wanted to talk about the elements of a TikTok video. So here you'll see that right here where the plus sign is, that little red circle, that's where you can follow people as you're scrolling on your homepage. So you can tap that little button to follow people. You can tap the heart to like a video. You can tap the little bubble down here to comment. And then you can also tap this arrow to share the video with a friend. So that's kind of how the app works. And so now, understanding the algorithm, you really want to make sure that you understand the algorithm, because this is what will help you grow your account, which could lead to new clients or customers. So every social media platform has an algorithm that determines if it'll show your content to more people. So on TikTok, it has a very specific algorithm where the number one most important thing is watch time. All social media platforms want to keep people on the app as long as possible because that's how they make the most money. So when you're creating a video, you want to try to keep the video as engaging as possible so that people watch that video that entire duration. This is why I recommend creating videos that are shorter, because this will really make sure that the person is watching it all the way through. As you know, people have short attention spans. I would suggest, creating a video between maybe 8 to 15 seconds would be really ideal, but definitely keep it under a minute. So yes, watch time is number one. You want to make sure that people are watching the video all the way through, or at least, more than 75% of the way, because that'll tell the algorithm that people are really enjoying your content and it'll show it to more people. So the second most important thing are shares. Like I mentioned, they want to make sure that people are staying on the app as long as possible. So if someone is sharing your TikTok video with a friend, it's going to increase that watch time. And that just tells the algorithm that people are really enjoying your content. The same thing with saves. You can actually save a TikTok video for later. So creating savable content is also very beneficial. And then of course, comments and likes. Comments and likes are great, but I would say that they're not important as the other. They can help with your engagement, but really you want to really be prioritizing that watch time and shares on TikTok. So how can you get longer watch time and more views? Let's talk about your strategy. So now we're going to talk about how you can create your custom strategy to grow your business on TikTok. So here are 3 things that I always recommend for people on TikTok who want to use it to promote their business. And gone are the days where you could just post randomly, hope for the best, having no strategy in place. That just doesn't work anymore. You really want to make sure that you have a strategy for any social media platform that you're on, so that you have a basis, that you have goals that you can, accomplish. So 3 things that I'm going to talk about to help you create your strategy are the importance of having a niche, using trends and series to grow on TikTok, and then lastly, why quantity matters over quality on TikTok. So it's very, very important to have a niche on TikTok. This will just really allow you to grow faster if you focus on one niche. So for example, if you are a fitness coach and you help busy moms lose weight, that is your niche, your fitness, and you have a specific target market that you are trying to attract. So I would highly recommend defining, getting very clear on your niche for your business, and then sticking to that niche, meaning you are only creating content within that category. This will just really help you allow you to grow faster when you focus on creating content for that one category. And then interacting with others in your niche. A really cool thing about TikTok is that if you are liking, commenting, sharing, any interactions with other people within your niche, this will tell the algorithm that you have something in common with them, and it'll just help increase your reach of others who are interested within the same niche. So that's just a cool little feature. I would definitely recommend, defining that niche that you want to be a part of, and then interacting with others as well. So using trends to your advantage. Like I mentioned earlier, trends are a really cool opportunity for your brand to show that you stay up to date on social media, whether it's a trending song or a trending dance. I do recommend that brands use trends once in a while. They're just a really great opportunity to capitalize on getting more views, because usually trending videos tend to get more views, and that could eventually lead to new followers. But I would say that trends should not be the only type of content you're creating on TikTok. I recommend that you create trends 25% of the time, and then the other 75% is original content, and I will explain why soon. So here is where to find TikTok trends. When you are on the TikTok app, you'll want to be on your home page and just scroll through the videos and notice what songs or dances or challenges are being repeated. Because if they're being repeated, that means that more than likely they are a trend. So, listen for those songs or the dances, and then you'll want to, once you recognize a trend, you'll want to create a video using that song or dance or whatever it is that you want to use. You'll want to create that pretty quickly, because trends only last a couple days and maybe a week or two. So you'll want to create that piece of content as quick as you can before a new trend becomes popular. And then, like I mentioned, trends should only take up about 25% of the content you're creating on the app. So the other 75% can be, for example, series. Series are such a great way to build your following rapidly, because it encourages viewers to follow you for more content within your niche. So, for example, an example of a series would be how to become a social media manager. This is the example I used here on the right. This is actually from my TikTok account, and I did this series. I believe it was a 5-part series, and this was video part 2. So basically, what you'll want to do to create a series is pick a topic within your niche that your target audience would be interested in, and then you'll want to break it up into parts. So I recommend anywhere between 3 to 6, but like I mentioned earlier, the shorter you can create your videos, the better, because that watch time is very important. So if you have to break it up into more parts, go for it. And always start with a title, because you'll want to make sure that that the person watching it knows what they're going to learn out of it. So start with a title, and then you'll want to always end the video by saying like and follow for part 2, or follow for part 2. Whatever you want them to do, you'll want to say that and then include the second part or the third part. So yeah, that's an example of a series. Definitely would try it out. I think it works for any type of business you have, any type of business. So now we're going to talk about why quantity matters over quality on TikTok. Now, this might not be the case for other social media platforms, but I really do believe that on TikTok specifically, the more you post, the better. And this is because, on Instagram, if you post twice a day, that might seem like a lot. But on TikTok, it's the algorithm's different. You increase your chances of getting more views and new followers by posting more. Like every post you create more opportunities to grow your account. And you're naturally going to get better at creating content the more you post it. So it's really a win-win. I really would not worry too much about the quality of the video. You really just want to produce as much TikTok content as you can on the app. So another tip that I have for businesses on TikTok is to establish a face of your brand. And this is really basically the opposite of Instagram, because on Instagram you see, some brands like to use influencers. So they'll work with several different influencers, and they'll have different people showing up within their content for their brand. But I really do believe that establishing one face for your brand on TikTok is key, because it helps keep your brand cohesive and recognizable. And a company that does a great job doing this is actually Nerf. If you don't know what Nerf is, it's an American company that sells like toy guns, like little toys for kids. And there's this person named Sophie Lightning, and she actually created a TikTok account all about Nerf guns, these toy guns, and she just shares, you know, anything about Nerf. And she's built a whole community of 2 million followers on TikTok just around Nerf. So Nerf actually hired her as their face of their brand. So she creates most of their TikTok content. And as you can see on the right, Nerf's account here, her face is showing up in a lot of the content, and it really just emphasizes that cohesiveness. And she just has proved that she loves Nerf and she is a great fit for their brand. So the way your business can do this is by picking someone to, be the face of your brand, whether it's you, the owner, someone that works within your company, or if you want to work with someone like an influencer, one influencer like Sophie is, then you could definitely do that and just, use them to kind of represent your brand on TikTok. So here are some elements of a TikTok video. So after you've created your video, you'll want to create a caption and use hashtags. So TikTok just recently announced that you can add up to 300 characters within your caption. So this is a really great opportunity to use that extra space to elaborate on your video, but you really do want to make sure that the video you create is doing most of the talking for you. So any other things you could put in the TikTok caption would be helpful. I would especially focus on hashtags here because hashtags can help you reach more people. It's not the only way to reach more people, but for example, if you use a hashtag within your niche, if someone's searching for a hashtag on TikTok, then your video can come up for what they searched. And you definitely want to use hashtags that relate to exactly what you're talking in your TikTok video. That will be very beneficial. And lastly, you can even use hashtags to target a specific city or country that you want to show up for. So for example, if I wanted to reach people in Sarasota, Florida, I could use hashtag Sarasota, Florida. And then my video would come up within content relating to Sarasota, Florida. So that's pretty cool. And then the last thing I want to mention here is posting time. TikTok does not have a chronological feed. I know a lot of people sometimes will look at their analytics to see what time is best for them to post, but I really do not believe that there is just one right time to post on TikTok. I think if you can post multiple times throughout the day, that is a great way to just go for it. Don't worry too much about figuring out what time is the right time. So this is a summary of what we learned today. You learned about what kind of videos your business should be making on TikTok. You now understand how the TikTok algorithm works. And now you can create a custom strategy to grow your business on TikTok. So thank you so much for being here today. I hope you learned a lot. And I really hope that you can use TikTok to grow your business. Thank you so much. If anyone wants to connect with me, I am on Instagram and TikTok, of course, at Social with Amanda. And I included my LinkedIn here so you can reach out if you have any questions. But thank you so much again. It was a pleasure. And I hope you guys really enjoyed it.
Hello, and thank you so much for joining me on this session for the Video and Social Media Marketing Conference. If we've not met, my name is Teresa Heath-Waring, and I work with online business owners and entrepreneurs from all around the world, helping them to scale their online businesses. And we do this mainly through business coaching, marketing, and I also throw in a bit of mindset. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is content on social media, because it's a really, really important thing. Gone are the days where you just have to be on social media. That used to be the case. The case was, as long as you appeared somewhere on social media, then it was fine. As long as people could find you, then it was fine. But now we live in a world where we are inundated with content all the time. We see posts, we see blogs, we see videos, we have streaming TV things, we have so much content out there. So now not only do we have to create that content, but the content has to be good. We actually have to create something that our perfect customer is going to want to see. So what I'm going to talk you through today is the 3 stages in which I teach within my own small business pathway, where I talk about when you're at different stages, you do different things, because often it can be very overwhelming. If you're looking at this, if you're a marketer, if you're a business owner, you might be thinking, I need to be doing all these things. But the truth is there are certain steps that you should be taking before you move into those bigger steps. Before you do other things, there are definitely some things that you want to start by doing. Now, the very first thing I want to talk to you about is bringing on the perfect customer. It's no good just having people come to your page if they're not going to actually want to engage with you or buy your product or service. So who is it that you are trying to attract to your page? That is the very first thing we need to think about. And we need to think about lots of things. We need to think about the fact of, firstly, who are they? Where might they live? What job might they have? The more demographic stuff that you would expect. But then we need to go a little bit deeper, and we need to start to understand and think about the fact of what keeps them awake at night. What do they worry about? What problem or pain do they have that your product or service will fix for them? And you need to kind of really start to understand them. And you can do this various ways. I've done it in the past by interviewing people, by asking them to come on a Zoom call with me and asking them questions like, if I could wave a magic wand, what would I do for you? And that's a great question to ask any perfect customer. So the first thing I want you to do before you do anything else is I want you to know exactly who you're talking to. And like I said, that's not just the demographic information, that is the going skin deep. Where do they shop? What are they watching on Netflix? What are the thoughts they say to themselves? How are they feeling? I want you to think about those things. Then once you know that, we can then start looking at the stages of what you can do at different points while doing social media. So let's start with stage 1. This is at the point where you're fairly new-ish, I guess, or you might know social media, you might be on various platforms, you might like it. However, you're not showing up consistently. And that's the key thing. The key thing is creating content consistently. Now, consistently doesn't actually have to mean that you are posting 3 times a day. That's not the case at all. Consistently can mean you post every other day, and that's absolutely fine, but it does need to be consistent. So if you're not being consistent, this is the stage that I would recommend that you look at. So what I teach in this stage is we keep it simple, because this is where the overwhelm kicks in. So I want you to do very simple things. So in this stage, I teach people to, first of all, look at 3 different categories. And actually, all I ever want them to post is 4 things a week. So category number 1 would be, how do you educate your audience? How do you prove that you're an expert, that you know what you're talking about, that you are someone that they can trust and come to when they need something? So this could be things like, if you do content such as a blog or a video or a podcast, you can obviously share them on your social media. It might be other people's content. If you don't have any of those things, go to your industry expert or go to your industry body, and have they got a blog that they're writing, or are they doing videos on YouTube that you could share? It could be tips, it could be stats or facts, it could be things like frequently asked questions. You could also show stuff like your awards that you've won, because that proves that you know what you're talking about. You can do live Q&As even, or share where you've been interviewed, or if you've been speaking somewhere. So there are lots of things that you can do under that educate section, but all I'd want you to do in this stage is post once a week and educate post. The next thing I want you to post once a week is an entertain post. I think sometimes people forget that actually this is social media. This is a social thing. I'm not going on and competing against my own competitors. I'm competing against the likes of my friend who might have just had a baby, or someone who's gone on holiday. So there has to be an element of entertaining during the social media process. So this could be things like behind the scenes. It could be funny videos, gifts. You could do seasonal stuff like Valentine's or Mother's Day. You might talk about your team, you might talk about social occasions, you might share some jokes and quotes, but just be a little bit careful there. You might share your story, what you love about what you do. You might talk about throwbacks or make book recommendations. So there's lots of personal ways in which you can entertain people. And normally under this entertain section is showing your face. So if you're a personal brand, if it's just you in your business, and even if it's not, the ethos of that company and that brand needs to come across, and that often is done in showing people's faces. And actually, as posts go, those are the ones that people like to engage with. And then the last of the 3 posts that I've got the categories for is call to action. It's great if you educate them, they'll think, wow, that person's smart. Great if you entertainment, they'll be entertained and they'll want to see more stuff. But if you don't ever ask for a call to action, they're never going to know what is it you actually do and how they can buy from you. So you do need to make sure you do a post that talks about your different products and services, talks about what offers you've got, competitions, talks about, you know, how to sign up to your newsletter or get on a lead magnet if you have a lead magnet. So there are lots of things you can put in this call to action section that isn't just always about selling. It could be come and DM me. It could be a testimonial or a case study, but that call to action should be about the product and service that you're selling. And then the last post I'd want you to do, so we've got those 3 categories and then we've got one last post, and that's a question post. Now, question posts are brilliant because what question posts do is they encourage that all important engagement, and engagement is super, super important because that helps you get seen by more people. So you could do things like dream dinner party guest, dead or alive, go. You could do things like, when was the last time you, whatever it might be that's to do with your industry, tell me in the comments. Or what was the best book you recommend for whatever your industry is. So for those 4 posts and the question, that's where I tell people to start. Once they're consistent with that, we then talk about moving on to the next level. And all of these stages I've been through. So I did that. I was pretty inconsistent to begin with, but then I got consistent. And then once I started to get really consistent and I was coping with those 4 different posts, I then moved into this section where I talk about categories. Now, this is where you open your net a bit wider. So instead of having the educate section, the entertain and the call to action and questions, you now have multiple different categories. And I suggest that you normally have between 9 and 12 of those categories. So this could be things like testimonials. It can be your content. So like I said, if you've got a blog or I have a podcast, so that's one of mine. It could be tips, it could be quotes. One could be show your face. That is definitely one of mine. It could be what you do for fun. It could be books, travel, could be upcoming events, places you featured, case studies, videos, external content, so much stuff. But basically you come up with these 9 to 12 categories and then you batch your content. Stage 1, I wasn't really at the content batching stage. This was where I really started to get it. So I would think of 10 tips that I could give my audience based on why they come to me. And I could write those 10 tips down, and then I could put them into something like Canva and create 10 social media posts. Or I could get 10 testimonials and create those 10 testimonials. Or I might do something like, have I got, you know, I have lots of different lead magnets now, but have I got a lead magnet? I might have 3 different lead magnets. But basically what you're doing is you're batching under each of those categories, and then you're mixing up when those categories go out. So you might do Monday morning, you might do a tip, and then Tuesday morning, you might do a quote. Monday afternoon, you might do a book recommendation. And you'll look normally at this stage, you normally use some kind of scheduler. So I recommend either Buffer if you're getting started, or you could use something like Agorapulse, which has a kind of library function where you can basically create lots of content, put it in, and it will keep sending it out. And as long as you've created loads of content, then it's absolutely fine to do that, because the chances are a very small percentage of your followers see your stuff anyway. And let's say I do a testimonial post once a week and I've got 10 testimonials. Well, that's 10 weeks that are going to go by before someone might see another testimonial that they've already seen once. But the chances are, even if they did see it the first time, they've not remembered it. So I wouldn't panic too much about that. And then at this stage, the other thing I like people to do, or I encourage them to do, is the types of posts they're doing. So normally At the beginning, it's just a plain post. It's just your standard post that you're doing, an image and some text maybe. This is where at this stage, because we're not feeling as overwhelmed, I like you to mix it up. So is it text only? Is it an image post? Is it curated, i.e. an image you've created? Or is it a photo? Or is it something like an infographic? Is it a GIF? Are you doing videos now? Is it audio video? I have a podcast, I use a lot of that. Is it live video, boomerangs, stories, reels? Are you on TikTok? You know, we now start to look at different ways we can do the social media posts, as well as the different categories. And then in the final stage, what I like to look at is, and this is the stage I'm in now I have a bigger team. I have a lot more time to focus on my content creation. I have an online business. So basically my job is creating content. And what I do now is I have themes. So every single week, we plan out many weeks in advance, what are we going to talk about that week? And let's say we're running up to a launch. I have lots of different programs, but one of my programs talks about how to build your email list. And I literally walk you through step by step the entire list process. So let's say you were looking at that and you were thinking, okay, we're going to be launching this. What I tend to do is in the weeks running up to it, I make sure that I create some content where you talk about what an email list is, why you need one. One week I might talk about what lead magnets are and how effective they are. And therefore I now structure my content very clearly around a theme each week. And we create the posts each week. We design new stuff. We create different captions. We still have some of the evergreen content going out where you're putting out all the time. But on the whole, we're creating something new every week. And we could only do this at this stage. It's only now that I have the team and the time and the experience of going through all those other stages that I'm now at a stage where I can actually sit down every single week and we can come up with the theme of the week. We also try and make sure that because we have a podcast, that my podcast theme complements the theme of the social media. Also, my emails that go out to my list, it complements the theme of what's happening everywhere else. So the whole thing is kind of tied up in a really nice bow. Whereas at stage 2 and at stage 1, you're unlikely to necessarily have that tied up in a nice bow. It might be that you've got testimonials going out about one product when it's not actually being launched or it's not open for sale. But the point of stage 2 is to offer a really variety of content consistently. So those are the 3 different stages that I teach when I talk about social media. Now, this is obviously just an overview. If you would like to find out more, then please do come and find me over at teresaheathwareing.com or just search Teresa Heath Wareing on your favorite platform. Mine is Instagram. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. I really hope you've enjoyed it and I can't wait to meet you.
Hi there, my name's Mike Killen. I'm the founder of Sell Your Service, and today I want to talk to you about how to scale your income, your audience, and your influence while staying small. Now, a lot of the techniques that I'm going to be talking about, the language and the slides appear to be directed towards marketing agencies and service-based businesses because that's my area of expertise. However, all of the principles that I'm going to go over in this talk are applicable to any businesses. We've done this with rental businesses, we've done this with insurance businesses, we've done this with soap and manufacturing businesses, we've done it with mining businesses. There's not a single business on the planet that we haven't been able to apply these principles to. However, my area of expertise is marketing agencies. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But today, what I want to talk to you about is how to scale your income, your audience, and your influence while staying small and while staying agile. So back in 2018, we went down to a little village in Cornwall in the UK called St Ives. If anyone knows it, they'll know just how stunning and picturesque it is. It's also very expensive. It's where a lot of very wealthy people, when they've got money to spend, go down to. And my plan was I was going to ask my now wife to marry me. So that was where I was going to propose to her. And I remember for the 3 days of the long weekend we were there, I was absolutely terrified. Obviously, if guys, if you've ever proposed, or girls, if you've ever proposed, you know that feeling. You're still, it's kind of nervous. You want to make sure you've got the ring, all this kind of stuff. And what was interesting is throughout that entire period, I never touched my phone. I didn't even bring my laptop down. And after we kind of, proposed, I'm happy to say she said yes, which made eating the meal afterwards much easier. I was having a conversation with a few friends of mine, and they were like, there's no way I'd be able to just take 3 days off from work like that. I was like, how do you mean? And they said, well, if I stop working, the business stops moving. If I, as the business owner or the entrepreneur, stop working, then I'm not able to generate sales. I'm not able to generate leads. I know that my audience acquisition dies off. There's a lot of parts of the process that many business owners feel trapped in. And yet I knew, in fact, I even pulled out my phone to show my PayPal and Stripe records to see, well, these are deposits coming in from customers and payments coming in from customers, and I don't touch them. More recently, I've had a pretty serious health condition, which meant that I've actually off work for months at a time. And yet my business still continues to grow. Our audience continues to grow, as in like the size of our YouTube following and the size of our email list, the size of our leads keeps growing, the number of sales we make keeps going, and our income hasn't really been affected by me not being in the business. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And the interesting thing is that there's only 4 of us in the business, 5 if you include my accountant. There was a period where we had way more people in the business. We had about 7, 8 people. I had a full-time video editor, full-time social media manager, and yet I was more stressed than ever. I wasn't making any money. I had to work in the business more than ever. And so what I want to talk to you about today is how you can structure your business and find the core kernel of the thing that you're going to scale. And it's not necessarily about just scaling the business. It's actually about scaling the idea or the benefit that you're bringing to the customer. This is obviously extremely frustrating for a lot of businesses. I think a lot of entrepreneurs feel that they can't ever take a break, that they can't take any time away. But there's also some very basic maths that we can do. For example, let's say your business makes $500,000 in a year, and you know that you have 10 members of staff and you work 8 hours a day. Now, I know that if you're a business owner, you work more than 8 hours a day. Even I, as someone who takes a lot of time off, worked more than 8 hours a day. But if you do work that and you have 10 members of staff, the logical conclusion to go from 500,000 to 1 million is say, well, I just need to double the hours that I work and double the amount of staff that I've got. And of course, if you've been in this game long enough, you know that that's impossible. I mean, it's literally impossible. You can't go from 8 hours to 16 hours, and you can't just double the amount of staff you've got and hope that it increases the turnover. It's a really classic trap that we get caught in, especially as business owners, to say, well, this level of thinking got me to this kind of revenue goal, so therefore I just need to double this level of thinking to get to the double the revenue goal. And I want to show you that whether your goal is to acquire a larger audience, to get more visitors to your blog post, to get more traffic, to get more readers of your books, to get more podcast downloads, to get more YouTube subscribers or views or whatever, all the way through to income, revenue, profit, sales per customer, recurring revenue, anything and all metrics that you are going after. It's not a case of just doubling the input in order to double the output. This is critical for us to understand. A lot of businesses believe that more equals more, as I've mentioned, that this kind of theory that we just have to do more work to get more results. And I also want to kind of dispel the myth that hiring equals scale. A lot of businesses approach me and they say, I want to scale, but I don't want to hire anyone. And I can understand that. We've got a small team here. Personally, I think you do have to have at least 2 or 3 members to your team, which I talk about kind of on my YouTube channel, about the structure of my team. But if you don't want to hire more people, if you don't want to hire a lot of people, you can still scale your business while remaining very small and very agile. A lot of businesses, when they get to sort of 25, 30 people, they struggle to be as agile as they used to be because they've just got too many people, too many working parts. And there is a sweet spot we found between about 8 and 15 people. You can have quite comfortably a mid 7-figure business, quite comfortably. You're still small, you're agile, you're having fun. Your profitability per employee is really high. So that's what I want to talk about today, is that it's not necessarily just about hiring people. And the problem is that when you do hire, you need to make sure that you're hiring for the right job. And how do you know what that job is? Well, that's what we're going to cover today as well. right now, businesses are facing, it's funny, it's a weird dichotomy because in one respect, it's the best time ever to start a business. In the UK, it costs £13 to register a limited company. A website is as good as free. You've got the world's best designers selling templates for a few bucks. You could put together an entire business probably in a day and have a value proposition and go start looking for customers. But the problem is that for many of us who have been established within a market, within a niche, within a particular deliverable, we're now finding that our reward levels are much lower. The amount of customers who are approaching us is lower. They're more demanding. You might yourself internally feel that it's just not as much fun as it used to be. And you're also struggling to get attention in the marketplace with the barriers to entry to all businesses dropping. I mean, there was a period when anyone who had an Instagram account and knew how to use the filters, all of a sudden they were a professional photographer and started booking themselves out for weddings. There was a period when anyone who had a copy of Photoshop was somehow a graphic designer. So while the barriers to entry dropping, in my opinion, are a good thing, they open up the market, they force competition, they bring in a wealth of talent. It also means that your customers are more confused than ever and their attention is being pulled in more direction. And that obviously impacts your revenue as well. Scale is a method to increase the amount of reward that you get for the work that you do. Now, for doing 1 hour's worth of work, you can have an infinitely rewarding experience, both in terms of feedback, metric growth, revenue, sales, whatever it is that you need. You can increase the amount of attention you get in the marketplace because you're going to be scaling something that not everyone else is going to be scaling. This is critical and something that I want us to really, really dig into. And also, your revenue is going to increase. And if we can kind of get those three pieces together, we tend to have a little bit more fun running our business. This is probably the number one barrier to most people achieving what they want, is that we value struggle. And what I mean by that is that whenever you look at a hardworking person, someone who's really grinding it out, usually in a manual labor job, we tend to think, yeah, they deserve to get rewarded for the work that they do. We are told very early on that if something is not hard work, then it's probably not worth doing. I remember feeling a tremendous sense of guilt when my business was working. It was working like clockwork. I had revenue coming in, I had sales coming in, and the less work I did with the business, the less I stuck my nose in, frankly, and allowed people to get on with their jobs and allowed the systems to get on with their jobs, the better it became for me, because I was able to work on bigger picture things and think more strategically. But there's a part of me that was thinking, yeah, but I'm not really working really hard for this. I'm not struggling. I'm not grinding. I'm not having to work 10, 12, 14-hour days. Do I deserve this? Have I cheated the system somehow? Is this all going to come tumbling down? There's a real problem with thinking that if it doesn't have some kind of struggle, then it's not worth doing. And I want you to try and give yourself a break today and think, well, actually, if I did create a system that allowed me to scale my income, my revenue, my audience, all of that, and it actually made my life easier, maybe that's the thing I should be going after. Maybe not everything needs to be a struggle. So the three pieces I want to cover off here are my XXX rated scaling process. So identifying what it is that you need to scale. It's not enough for us to say, most businesses approach me and they say, I don't understand it. We spent 10 grand a month last year on ads. This year we're spending 20 grand a month on ads, but our revenue hasn't gone up. And that's a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is that actually drives scale within a business. We're also going to talk about how you don't scale a business. And then finally, I'm going to talk about my scaling process. As I mentioned, my name is Mike Killen. I'm the founder of a company called Sell Your Service. I'm considered the world's #1 sales coach for funnel businesses. I'm also the author of 5-Figure Funnels. What I do is I help people to discover hidden benefits to their services that are so compelling that they can't help but sell more. It's one of my books, From Single to Scale, and like I said, 5-Figure Funnels as well. But if you look me up, Mike Killen, you'll find all that kind of stuff. So this is my XXX rated 3x scaling formula. This is very basically how we can actually scale anything from 1 to 3 relatively simply, just by identifying the right things that we need to go after. Some of you might recognize this. This is called a funnel. This is my world. But if you're not a marketer, don't worry, I'm not going to get into funnel marketing yet. This very basically demonstrates the model at which people fall off and what we can scale. So at the top, we have attention. This is just when you put content out, it's adverts, it's traffic. That's the amount of attention that you've captured from people. That's eyeballs on screens. That's people reading your blog posts. That's people listening to your podcasts. It's just the widest possible audience that is out there. And after some jiggery pokery and you send them some, emails and some checkout pages and some adverts, you then drive sales. So presumably you don't have 100% conversion rate. If you do, I'd be desperate to talk to you because I think we could do wonderful things. But let's say you have 100 people in your audience, 10 of them buy, it's a 10% conversion rate. You've put out 100 pieces of content, 100 adverts, you've driven 100 people to view your website, you've captured their leads, maybe you just make a sale to them on that page, whatever, and you have them you have them buy something. That's the sales part of the process. And then underneath that, which is often neglected, and in my opinion is actually probably the biggest roadblock, is the operations part of the process. This is delivering the work. This is building the product. This is consulting the customer. When you start up and you're just by yourself, you have to do all three of these, right? Which makes sense. You're creating the content. You're the one building the adverts. You're the one driving traffic to the website. Maybe you're attending networking events, telling people about who you are, and then saying to them, make sure to go to my website for more information. Or maybe you get their card from them and you say, I'll call them up later. I'll call you up later. You then go through that sales process. So content, adverts, traffic, that's some of the ways that you can affect attention. Typically, most businesses will try to pour money into the adverts part or the traffic part. Most people believe that traffic is their problem. And while that can be true, in my experience, I found it's actually the way that you use the traffic you're getting at the moment. I know that roughly speaking, cold traffic that comes to our website that buys a first product is roughly a 4% conversion rate. That means that if I was to go from 4% to 5%, that's just a 1% increase, a 25% increase, from 4 to 5 is a 25% increase. That can massively affect everything else going down the line. A lot of businesses come to me and their conversion rate is crazy. Now, your conversion rate might be much higher depending on what you sell. It might be much lower depending on what you sell. But a lot of businesses approach me and they'll say, we've spent tons of money on ads, but we're still not making any sales. And spending money on marketing will only accelerate the results you're already getting. This is the important part to understand about scaling your business at all. If you want to scale your business, you have to understand you're going to scale everything, even if you don't want to. You are going to scale the bad along with the good. We can only accelerate the results that you're already getting. So if you have a 1% conversion rate and you pour all of your money into time and energy and efforts on traffic, you will probably still end up with a 1% conversion rate. That's not what the scale part of the process is magically going to convert and change. So we have to identify different areas of that conversion process that we want to affect. So coming down a level into the sales area, the amount of businesses, they say, look, we're struggling to make sales. And I'll go, great, what's the traffic to the checkout page? And we'll go then test the checkout page and the link is broken. So immediately I'm like, well, thank goodness you didn't spend any money on ads because it would have been a waste of money. People will laugh at that and they turn their noses up at it. But I'll guarantee you somewhere along your conversion process, you have got a broken link. You've got a link that is redirecting to the wrong page. You've got a tiny bit of JavaScript missing, which means the checkout process doesn't work. Your hosting is incorrect, which means it takes ages for someone to load a checkout page. You'd be staggered at the amount of very simple, easy operations that you can perform throughout your website and your conversion process that will increase sales. I typically work with, as I mentioned, marketing agencies, and their biggest thing is leads. Marketing agencies are always like, I want leads, I want leads, I want leads. Okay, fine. Take me through your sales process. I say, well, we have a conversation with the customer, we write up the proposal, we send them the proposal, and then they sign it. I go, fantastic. how long does it take for you to finish the first meeting and write the proposal? And they're like, yeah, a couple of weeks. I'm like, a couple of weeks? What are you doing? Like, what are you spending your time on for essentially a 4-page document or a 1-page document to take 2 weeks? Like, instantaneously, we could change that. Maybe it should take 3 days, right? Wow, we won't know how to do that. That's not what I'm talking about. We change to 3 days. And if you go to betterproposals.io, they actually have a report that talks about the sweet spot of when to send a proposal. They have hard data to suggest that the sooner you send it, the more likely you are to convert. And then I say, great, after you send the proposal, which I actually don't think you should do, by the way, I think you should do a live call with the customer. A bit like this, you should run through them and then close them there and then, but that's for another video. After you send the proposal, how often do you follow up with them? I go, oh, we'll send it once and then we'll, send them a couple of emails saying, oh, did you get the email? I'm like, great. So we can increase that follow-up process then and close them and find out. Typically, the scale process is about identifying areas that we can actually affect and make a difference to rather than just spending more money on traffic and ads. And then the final part here is operations. If you're the entrepreneur, if you're the consultant, you're the one who has to do the work. And every single time I present this to different businesses, different types of businesses, they say, yeah, but I'm the consultant. I have to be the one consulting. Customers want to work with me. You don't believe this right now, what I'm about to say, but categorically, your customers are not paying to work with you. Your customers are paying to solve a problem. They don't care if it's the tooth fairy that comes down and solves their problem. They're paying to solve the problem. If you remove yourself from the operations part of the process, the rest of your business will begin to grow. It's an incredibly simple scaling formula to have a look at what your delivery process is and then think, well, how could I remove myself from that in order to focus on sales? And then how could I remove myself from sales to focus on attention? And then how could I remove myself from attention to get other people to do all of this? Right? Remember, you then think, yeah, but I have to do it. No, you don't. You absolutely categorically do not. You don't. I know you don't believe that right now, but you don't have to be the one that does it. So the 3 questions that we then ask someone who is willing to go into that scaling process with us, we say, look, we want to scale the business. We want to go from 10 to 20. We want to go from 1 to 2. We want to go from 100 to 200, whatever. Go, fantastic. The first question I need to ask you then is, can you handle 1,000 orders tomorrow and deliver them? So you want to scale, you've given me some money. I'm going to bring 1,000 customers to your door tomorrow who have got their credit cards ready to buy. And immediately, most people go, well, whoa. I wouldn't be able to handle that many customers. There's no way I'd be able to handle that. Now, right, we might have a bit of a problem then because you've already put a bottleneck in your business whereby I can only scale your business so much. If you can't handle 1,000 orders tomorrow and deliver the same results to every single customer and take payments from them, we're going to always find problems during the scaling process. It's going to be almost impossible for us to scale past where you are if you're not able to deliver the work. Now, again, immediately you might be thinking, well, how the hell am I supposed to, if I'm a consultant, how could I possibly remove myself? How could anyone do 1,000 orders tomorrow? I'm not talking about hiring a massive team. I'm not talking about becoming Deloitte or anything like that. There is a process. I talk about it a little bit in my book, From Single to Scale, and in 5-Figure Funnels. But for what we're going to talk about here, I'm actually going to show you some examples of how you can service customers and still maintain the same level of quality. Second question is, can someone or something else deliver the results? We live in an amazing world now of cloud computing and like kind of this world of SaaS where entire parts of your business can be automated by Zapier, ActiveCampaign, even Facebook ads to an extent. They're able to take huge parts of the process off your plate. There's a lot of the onboarding process, for example, during the delivery process that we don't even touch. It just gets taken care of by machines and robots and magic fairy dust. But is there a part of the process that someone or something else can do? The sales process, the audience process, the operations process, you need to start identifying what those areas are that other things or other people can take off your plate. Because again, let's say that you're the one having to do the work. If I bring you 1,000 customers, you're going to be exhausted. And all of a sudden, your sales and marketing is going to drop off because you're working with 1,000 customers all of a sudden. And the third and final piece, and people often overlook this, is the process repeatable? If you have a sales process that has worked, why don't you run it again? People are like, well, I have to create new messaging. You know, I don't want to saturate the market. With all due respect, you're not Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola doesn't even saturate the market. All right. You're not advertising as much as them. I'll guarantee you don't have as much as advertising budget as them. And yet they still advertise regularly every single day wherever they are. I promise you, your business is not saturating the market by running a sales campaign that worked once and running it a second time. And then on your operations part of the process, if you're doing bespoke work, for example, the proposal part, like where you write the proposal for the customer, why is that bespoke? Why does that take 2 weeks to write, 4 weeks to write? It should be relatively copy and paste. Even for the largest companies in the world that I've worked with, we have copy and paste templates where we change a few of the facets because we understand that what we're delivering to them is a standardized process. So number one, can I handle 1,000 orders tomorrow and deliver them? Number two, can someone or something else deliver the results? And number three, is the process repeatable? I'm not saying this is going to happen overnight, but it is going to happen if you begin to identify those parts of the process. So let's take a look at an example method here. Let's say you're a service-based business. You could be a consultant, marketer, whatever. It doesn't really matter. You go networking. You go to a bunch of different, breakfasts and lunch, not now, of course, but it's beginning to open up again. You tell people what it is that you do. You get a lead inquiry. You say, yeah, I'm a marketer. I'm a leadership consultant, whatever. They say, oh, interesting. We have leaders. We need marketing. Take my card. You call them up. You go for coffee. You generate a few ideas. You write a proposal. Eventually, they come back and they say, that's kind of expensive. And then you deliver the work, right? That there, as someone who pretty much predominantly just works on people's sales process. I have seen this for timeshare businesses. I have seen this for lighting companies, insurance, underwater mining machinery, anything and everything. This is pretty much the same process. This is what I would call the old fat lazy method. However, there is a new, sexier method that does stuff that the older method wouldn't do, which is where we start with video content. If you spend all of your time telling people what you do, instead, maybe you should start recording that, putting it somewhere, and when someone asks a question that you get 1,000 times, you can actually redirect them to that link instead, eliminating your need to go to networking events. You then have something called a lead magnet. If you want to learn more about that, I highly recommend checking out Digital Marketer, digitalmarketer.com, and their posts on a lead magnet. A lead magnet is that white paper, it's that report, it's that template, that swipe file, that training video, that webinar where you ask for someone's email address and contact information and you deliver them something. Imagine knowing that if someone found out that you are the world's best leadership consultant for paint manufacturing businesses, for example, that's your niche, and you said, I've got a document that outlines the 5 ways to hire the best team members for a paint manufacturing business. And you could just drive 1,000 customers to that page day in, day out, and people put their email address in and they became leads. No longer would you have to worry about your lead generation. It's completely scalable. And it doesn't matter if one person visits a day or 1,000 people visit per hour, you're still able to capture those leads. That then allows you to create some kind of email sales campaign, an outreach campaign or an engagement campaign against something that gets people to buy, and they buy what we call a tester product. This older method essentially relies on someone going from 0 to 25,000 or 0 to 100,000 or 0 to 50 million. Your customers will have a budget that they're willing to spend that allows them to test the waters with you. That's why I write books. It's much cheaper for someone to buy a book than to buy my coaching program or work with me one-on-one. Wouldn't you know it, most people who buy my book then become course members, and those course members become coaching members, and those coaching members become consulting customers. Because I sell them a tester product, I say, look, we might not be ready to work with you one-on-one. You might not be ready to work with us one-on-one, but I want to offer you this $9 product, $19 product, $100 product, $20,000 product, depending on what the scale is with your customers, to find out if we're the right working group for you. And then after they buy that, we upsell them to another product. And then after they buy that, we upsell them to another product. Now, this process here, again, doesn't happen overnight, but it is infinitely more scalable than the older sales method. The problem we have is, what do we put in each one of those segments? What do we do as a lead magnet? What do we do as video content? What do we do as a tester product? And that's kind of what I want to talk about later on in this talk. The concept I need you to understand here is that you don't scale the business, you scale the idea. What you're actually doing is scaling the problem that the customer has. Now, I know that sounds very startup millennial bullshit, like you don't scale a business, you scale the idea. But in actual fact, the process is that you don't just add more accountants and more salespeople and more telephone members and more designers. That hiring process isn't necessarily the route to scale. What we need to understand is, how do we get more people and more attention and eyeballs on the problem that we're solving, the idea that we're bringing to the market? So you don't scale a business, you scale the idea, and it just so happens that the business executes on that. Results do not equal delivery. The results that you're bringing to the customer, the idea that you're bringing to the market, the problem that you are solving is not tied to a particular method of delivery. And this is where most people get stuck, is because they think, well, we're a web design company, we're a sales training company, we're a marketing leadership consulting company. The way that we deliver results to the customer is we sit down with them and we talk with them one-on-one. Fine. That's one of the methods and one of the delivery methods that you use to deliver results. But it's not exclusive to that delivery method, is it? There's 100 ways to give results to the customer. There's thousands, infinite ways to give results to the customer, because that's what the customer's buying, is the results. They don't want to buy you sat in a room with them, because if you didn't deliver the results, they wouldn't want you there. What they want is the results. They actually don't care about the delivery method. If they do want to work with you one-on-one, awesome. But that should be a 5-6 figure engagement minimum. So I want us to take a really quick look at this piece of sales copy here. I apologize. I know it's a lot of text. Let me move me out of the way here. But I promise it's got a point. So I've had to buy a whole new wardrobe and it's costing me a fortune. You're going to have to spend your hard-earned money on an entirely new wardrobe because your current outfits aren't going to fit. Family, friends, and colleagues are going to comment on how great you look. Imagine having more energy to do the things you love and look great while doing it. The best part, you don't have to stop eating what you love. There's no invasive surgery, no fad diet, and no insane exercises. At BKN, we believe weight loss and looking good is the first step to a fitter, healthier you. You'll suffer no headaches or dizziness like other weight loss systems, and you'll feel the results instantly. You'll live longer, sleep better, and have better looking skin. Family and friends are going to ask you, what's your secret? The only problem is that you're going to have to buy a whole new set of clothes. So this is some sales copy that we had created for a, well, as you can tell, a fitness and health business. And what I want to ask you now is, could you tell me what the benefits are? To me, that sales copy is, well, we know it's compelling enough for people to buy. People click the buy button reading that sales copy. And quite clearly, most people would be able to identify what the benefits are. Feeling healthier, weight loss, longer life, longer longevity, more energy, self-confidence, self-esteem, better relationships. So there's a ton of benefits there. So we've made the sale. We've clearly outlined the value to the customer. It even says stuff like, you don't have to change your diet. You can still eat the things you want to eat. You don't have to do any kind of crazy exercises. So we've even kind of counteracted some of the objections that they might have, and even counteracted some of the myths and misconceptions that they might have. So that piece of sales copy there makes sales. It gets people to click buy. You can tell me what the benefits are, but can you tell me what the product is? What is it that someone was trying to sell inside that copy? People go, coaching? It could have been coaching. Could have been gym membership. Could have been an app. Could have been a podcast, could be an online fitness group, could be one-on-one personal training, it could be a diet book, it could be a recipe book, it could be an exercise program. The product is irrelevant. the results are what have captured someone's attention and say, that's my life, that's the future that I want to go after that. It's only afterwards do we care about what the product is. What most businesses do is they get this backwards and they spend all their time trying to focus on scaling and drawing more attention to the product and the process, not the benefits. And this is critical because of the three laws of selling services. Law 3 is sell futures, not features. Sell futures, not features. And what this means is that you need to be able to quickly and powerfully identify what the future is that you are giving the customer, not focus on what the features are for the products. If you want to sell anything and everything, if you paid attention at the start, what I said is my job is to help businesses identify hidden benefits to their products and services that are so compelling that people want to buy more of them. That's how we do it. We sell futures, not features. And what a lot of businesses do is they ignore that. And this allows us to scale ideas rather than the business itself. We're scaling the idea. Let me go back here. Not the business. So the future is the idea. We're not trying to scale the features. We're not trying to say, oh, and instead of 10 widgets, you'll get 100 widgets. Like, no one cares about that. What we're talking about is the futures and the benefits that they get. That's the idea. The futures and the benefits are the ideas. Here's some examples of some service agency ideas that we've seen scale very, very well. For example, you could be a marketing business, a design company, development. You could be a marketing strategy consultant. You could be a leadership consultant. Doesn't really matter. These are ideas that scale. These are ideas that we can create content around and begin to scale. You're going to have to think of something else to do in the mornings rather than check your emails. Now, if I was an automation specialist and someone came to me and they said, look, my biggest problem is I wake up, I immediately check my emails, and I kind of immediately go off the road and I end up focusing on the wrong things. I have a leadership consulting package that allows you to wake up and you don't have to check your emails because you know that you've got sales in there. You know you've got new customers and new leads. You don't have to worry about it. Another one, this is one someone else came up with. I absolutely love this. Networking events won't ask you to pay to join. They will ask to pay you to speak. So they won't ask you to pay them to join them. They will ask if they can pay you to speak. Now, I love that as a marketing consultant. Basically, their job was to take people who were leaders within their field and say, how would you like to make money being paid to speak at various networking events? And they were like, yeah, I'd love that. Awesome. Well, this is what we do. Networking events won't ask you to pay them to join. They'll ask to pay you to speak. And another one could be around productivity, marketing consultancy. Again, maybe your marketing agency is really good at taking the sales process away from the CEO who always has to do the networking, and Thursdays is their networking day. And you say, Thursday is a new Sunday. Spend it doing what you love. One of my customers, a long time ago, I had a conversation with him, and what we were doing is building chatbots for him, which he spent an enormous amount of time, even as the owner of the business, answering very specific questions that came up a lot. He didn't want to take time away from his workers because they were really, really good at what they did. They said, well, we can build kind of a chatbot thing that will actually have someone else or something else answer a lot of these questions. A lot of them are very frequent. We identified something like 25 frequently asked questions, and the chatbot will answer it. And it even then went a little bit further, like this thing could write proposals. It was called landbot.io, if anyone's interested. And what we did is we got those bots to do all sorts of kind of crazy things. And he realized that his Thursday, he got it back. And I was like, well, what do you want to do? He said, I just want to go out on my boat. Great. That's our job. Our job is to help you spend more time on your boat. It's not to build chatbots. All you're doing is removing time from one activity and putting it into something that you want to do. So that was our job, was allowing him to take back Thursdays. I actually don't think it was Thursday. I think it was Friday, but in that case. So how do we think about this? How do we frame that idea? You need to ask yourself, if someone worked with you and got the best results possible, what does their life look like? In the future, after working with you with the best possible outcome, What does their future look like? They're able to spend more time outdoors with their dog and their husband. They're able to hang out more, do the things they love. Maybe that's the thing. It's like, if you work indoors all day, I'm going to give you a day a week back. Our sales process is so effective, you'll be able to take a day off. Maybe you're a content creator and you say, well, I know that a lot of businesses spend a huge amount of time copywriting. What if I take this off your plate and allow you to go out there and spend more time in the forests with your friends and loved ones? You need to think about, what is the future that you're providing your customers? If they work with you, what do they get? Now you need to ask themselves, how do they achieve that future? What are the steps that give them a better future? Because this is your process. If they start at A and they end at B, and B is the best possible future, what are the steps that they need to take to get there? Maybe they need to standardize their blog post writing format. Maybe they need to only focus on one area. Maybe they need to work on SEO more than anything. I don't know. Just think about what those steps are. Maybe between 3 to 7 steps. That's your product. When you have a standardized system and process, you have a product. If you have a standardized process, you can teach it to other people. And what I love about this is that that standardized product, if you wrote it out as a blog post, that's some free content. If you gave them some templates, that's your lead magnet. If you did some training just like this, that's your tester product. If you said, let one of our guys work with you alongside this, that's your entry level or kind of what we call splinter product. If you had someone then work with you one-on-one to implement this, that's your core offer. If they say, I just want you to take entire care of this, that's your recurring revenue product. But it's from the same process and the same product. All you're doing is you're saying to them, I will give you those same results faster, easier, and with more automation. Faster, easier, more automation. Every time you make it faster, easier, and more automation, it goes up a price level. So you have all the way from free all the way up to your recurring revenue 6-7 figure products. That's your product right there. Now I want you to think about, what are the principles behind this process? If someone wants to spend more time off and only work 4 days a week, I want you to think about these 4 areas: mistakes, insights, disruptive ideas, and guides. What are the top 4 mistakes people make when they want to work 4 days a week, when they want to increase eyeballs, when they want to become a network speaker, whatever? What are the top 4 mistakes? What are the top 4 insights? So insights are things that you know within the industry. They're things that they don't know about. They're things that you think, I should be teaching people this stuff because they don't know. These are the hidden hacks, right? The disruptive ideas counteract things like myths and misconceptions that people have, limiting self-beliefs that people have about that process. For example, $10,000 is very cheap for a website. Most people mistakenly believe, they have the myth that they should only pay 50 quid for a website or 500 quid for a website. Well, I say, actually 10K is really cheap for a website. Another disruptive idea that I've got, websites don't create sales. Hopefully you've seen a bit of that today. Having a website doesn't create sales. Customers don't buy from websites. They're directly counteracting something that people internally believe. And then you've got the top 4 guides. And I'll make sure that these slides are made available for people who want to go over the notes. The top 4 guides: how to ... how to do the entire process, how to organize your content, how to do one step, how to do one task. These are the individual pieces. And what a lot of people make the mistake is they say, yeah, but if I show someone how to do it, then they won't want to work with me. The best chefs in the world release a ton of cookbooks. No one is buying Alan Passad's book and going, oh, well, now I don't need to eat at his 3 Michelin star restaurant in Paris because I've read his book. No one's reading those books and then Nikki Nakamura's book from N Naka going, oh, well, I've read her cookbook, so therefore I've watched her series on Chef's Table on Netflix. I don't need to go to a restaurant anymore. That's not what happens. Yes, there will always be people who will be looking for the freebie. That's life. You've got to just accept, as we mentioned, that scale increases the good and the bad. You've already got people who are wasting your time. How often have you sat down for coffee with someone only for them to pick your brains for some free ideas, and you think, well, I've helped them, and then you see them in 3 months' time and they haven't implemented anything? There's always going to be people who want the freebie. But there's also people who, after buying one product from you, will want to buy 2 products and then 10 products and then 100 products, and then they'll just want to give you all of their money. If you continually show them through these kind of 4 areas of mistakes, insights, guides, and disruptive ideas, that's your content. And if you repeatedly deliver that to them, they're going to want to work with you more. This is how you increase your value massively within the marketplace. Very quickly, a scalable service business model requires these big things. The future, which is your big idea, that people should take Wednesdays off, or that people can start being paid by networking events. You've got your how, which is the product, and you've got your principles, which is the content. And when you bring those together, that is how you know you have a scalable business model. That's how you know, even if you deliver one-on-one consulting or mining machinery, this is how you can have a very scalable business. So we've got the XXX rated scaling process, identifying audience, sales, and operations. There are different parts within that process that you can work on. You don't scale a business, you scale an idea, and we have to understand what that future is that you're delivering to the customer before they're willing to buy from you. And when you have that, you then know what you can scale, because it's much easier to write about how to lose weight and feel confident. It's much easier to create content and adverts and sales process around the idea of quitting your job, that big idea that you've got. And then my scaling process, which is now your scaling process, which is taking the how-to, the future, and the principles and turning that into content, the product, and the big idea. Scale your ideas, not your products. Don't talk about the product more, talk about the ideas. I constantly talk about how people should charge more. I constantly talk about how you should have the confidence to be able to justify any price as much as you want. Results do not necessarily equal delivery. They're not exclusive to each other. There's many ways to skin a cat. Create content from your what, as in what are your principles, and create products from your how. If you have this process and you have one long process, that whole thing to work with someone one-on-one, that could be 25,000, it could be 100,000, it could be 500,000 to do that. But maybe if you break it down into smaller areas, there are courses there, there's software there, there's products, digital products, books, content, and anything in between. My couple of pieces I want to wrap up on here is commit to the idea of serving others. You should really say to yourself, if I was to create this, I would be serving my customers better than anyone else in the market. And it's very difficult when, let's say that you've got 10 competitors in the marketplace and your customers say, why should I work with you? They're going to now see, well, I can work with 10 website designers, or I can work with someone whose sole job is just designed to get me paid networking gigs. I know which one I'd rather go to. If you have a red 1960s Ferrari that you want to restore to showroom condition, you don't just take it to any garage, you take it to the garage that says, oh, we restore red 1960s Ferraris to showroom conditions. And my last point here is charge as much as you can, because you'll be surprised at how much people are willing to pay if you have a specific process to help them achieve their big idea. My job is basically to combine motivation and service. That's pretty much what I work with here. Hopefully you've seen that. My name is Mike Killen. Please just shoot me an email, michael@sellyourservice.co.uk. You can also go to sellyourservice.co.uk/YouTube or youtube.com/sellyourservice and find my YouTube channel, or go to our blog, and I've got a ton of content like this completely for free, available for anyone and everyone. Thank you so much to World Digital Weeks for putting this together. I've had an absolute blast. Hope I haven't taken up too much of your time. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I will make sure that these are available. If you head to sellyourservice.co.uk/World Digital Weeks, I'll make sure that these World Digital Week, make sure that you are supplied with these slides. In the meantime, thank you so much for your time. I'll speak to you later. Have courage, commit, and take action.